Is it time?
It is time for us to do what we have been doing, and that time is every day.
We'll know in a very short period of time, but it looks like it could be something that will be not good. Believe me, not good.
I see issue with that. And again, hey.
You're not going to be able to insult your way to the presidency. That's not going to happen.
I don't know who created Pokemon Go, but I'm trying to figure out how we get them to have Pokemon go to the polls.
I'm Ted Cruz, and my pronoun is kiss my ass.
So when you think about it, there is great significance to the passage of time in terms of what we need to do to lay these wires, what we need to do to create these jobs.
America is a nation that can be defined in a single word. I was going to put him.
Not good. Believe me, not good.
Hello, everyone. 227 strong. Welcome, Dissidents One and all. This is the DueDissidence podcast. My name is Keaton Weiss, or as I am known today, Dad. Happy Father's Day to all the dissident dads out there, including my co-host, Russell Dobular.
Thank you. Kit, listen, I know YouTube changed its algorithm on Friday.
you're now allowed to spread pizza disinformation on YouTube. But we don't appreciate it in our chat.
Is he spreading Chicago deep dish propaganda?
He's spreading pizza misinformation. And listen, it's not that Chicago style pizza is bad. It's that it's not pizza. When I want pizza, I don't order lasagna. I order pizza. Whatever you guys got going on out there with it's like somebody didn't understand that the pie part was fanciful. They took it literally and they turned it into a literal pie. So stop spreading misinformation. If anybody's in New York, you can have the real thing. And you go to Bleecker Street Pizza, you get the Nona slice. That's real pizza. You go out to Chicago, they didn't quite understand what a pizza pie actually was.
Maybe we can have a debate on Thursday because
we
Kit
should.
from Hard Lens Media is going to be joining us this Thursday. What is that? The 22nd at 8 p.m. So Kit will be on.
No, I knew this was going to happen. We talked about it as soon as YouTube said we're going to allow discussion of Chicago style pizza. I said, Kit, that motherfucker, man, he's going to drop right into our chat with that shit.
It's a slippery slope. Slippery slope is what we said.
Slope.
This is what we tried to say. You know, this is why you have to really clamp down hard on that stuff. Indeed.
Yeah.
Indeed.
What's next? San Francisco bagels.
Exactly.
The fuck, man.
Exactly. Got to draw the line somewhere, do we not? We have a full show for you guys tonight. You might say we have a real whale of a show tonight. We have some business that we have to take care of. Lots of stuff to talk about. But Russell, you did mention that you got an email during the countdown about some meeting of the minds out there. And where is it? London?
All right. So, yes. And I want to mention it because Schellenberger is pitching people to come out and see it. So Russell Brand, Matt Taibbi, Schellenberger, I assume other people are launching a free speech alliance. I don't really know more than that because this article just dropped. The theme of the article is the cowardice of the censors. Now, I'm not going to get too deep into this because Keaton will literally throw something at me from Albany and hit me in the head back here if I get too into this. But it has to do with Rogan had RFK on his show, and they talked about COVID and the vaccines and the pharmaceutical
Well, they've been trying to do
industry.
that for a while. They've been planning this conference for a while. Sorry, I'm adjusting my light.
The free speech conference?
Yeah.
Okay, so the thrust, I hadn't heard about it. The thrust of the article is about how Rogan challenged these prominent scientists who were attacking the RFK interview to come debate. And, he offered $100,000 for them to come debate.
That's been all over Twitter today. Yeah.
And they won't debate. So that's the main thrust of the article. But if you are in the UK, if I were there, I would go. They're selling tickets. I guess they're doing some kind of launch or joint appearance. So if you are out there, check it out.
Yeah, that's been all over Twitter today. I forget the guy's name.
I heard about
he confronted the guy at his house, challenging him to accept the debate. I would love to see a debate happen. I think it would be great. I think if it's a debate of that nature, I think it should not be a debate me bro type thing. Like the point of a debate like that is not to own the other side, it's to educate the public. So I would like to see a debate like that have a sort of like discovery process, if you will. Show what you got. Hold on, let me just make this point. You show what you got.
I was just giving the name of the guy.
Oh, okay.
It's Professor Peter Hotez.
Yeah, Hotez, something like that. Yeah. So you show what you got to the other side in terms of evidence, studies, citations. They show you what you got. Because especially like when you have scientific debates or medical debates with people, very often when I see two people debate a scientific matter, they'll be like, well, in 2013, a Luxembourg study said this. And then the other guy's like, well, I don't know about that, so I can't speak to that. So I think they should each show the other side what they got so that they're aware and prepared.
Right.
And then I think it would be a great thing to do. I'm all for it.
Yeah, but they won't do it, which is the point of this article.
Well, they do this whole thing where they say that if we do it, we are validating, we're
legitimizing you, right.
Which you're not. The whole point is you get to go there and discuss it and debunk it if you got what it takes to debunk it. Like there's no harm in doing that. And I don't see any harm in that whatsoever. All right, so there's that. Perfect. All right, so folks, please hit that like button. Excuse me. Hit that subscribe button. I'm breaking my rule. I'm having a beer on the air because it's Father's Day. We went to Vermont. We live 45 minutes from the Vermont state line. And so we went to Vermont because the best beer in the world is brewed in Vermont. I don't want to hear any of this Belgium, Germany shit. Those are lagers. That's minor league. Well, actually, not Belgium. They have some ales. But the German stuff is great, but they're mostly lagers. That's minor league baseball, okay? Vermont, the Vermont New England IPAs are the best beers in the world, and I got a few of them. Yes.
You know, I'm not a drinker.
Yes.
I'm not
Kit,
a drinker.
you want to come at me with that? What you got out there in Chicago? You got Goose Island? Is that the best you got out there? Come on, let's hear it.
We'll hear from our viewers in Germany on this.
Yeah,
we have a few in Germany.
We do. Hey, German beer is great, but you know, lagers are their own thing. Ales are their own thing.
And actually, we have a big viewership in Ireland. I would think some of them would take exception to that contention.
You know, I don't think the Irish are snobs about their beer. I think they consider beer to be, you know, beer is, you know, a social thing. I don't know of any too many. I don't know of too many, and it could be wrong. Please let me know if I'm wrong. I don't know of too many like craft Irish.
They're
breweries,
not precious.
You know
they're
I mean?
not
they're
precious,
not precious
people.
Right. They're not precious about it. Beer is a social lubricant there. You know what I mean? As far as I know. If I'm wrong, please let me know. I would love to try the best beer in Ireland. Ian M., YouTube member. Thank you very much for signing up before the show.
You make up for the ones we've lost between the Jordan and the Jimmy interview. You lose one section with the Jordan one and another section with the Jimmy one.
Well, with the Jimmy one, we got some and lost some, not members, but subscribers, because, you know, Jimmy's very passionate about a lot of the things that RFK is very passionate about. And so a lot of Jimmy fans probably like RFK. And the next clip we put out after the Jimmy interview was the RFK Greenwald interview. And a lot of them got triggered and left. As Obama would say, we triggered some folks, you know?
Yep. We triggered some folks.
We triggered some folks.
There was somebody in the comments who asked if subscriptions come with a refund. I said, we already spent your money on Coke and hookers. We can send you some of the leftover Coke, but our hookers don't travel.
Yeah, exactly. Jax Page, thank you for the $25. We appreciate that. And thank you for the Father's Day wishes. Appreciate that. Yes, I did have a very good Father's Day. So I want to thank my boys and my wife for giving me a great Father's Day, and happy Father's Day to my dad if he is in the chat this evening. But thank you, Jax. We appreciate that very, very much. I
got kids all over the country burning a candle in front of my picture today.
Yeah, right, there you go. Well, you've been so you have a daughter who lives in London, right? Or England?
I do, yeah.
But is she in London or just you somewhere else?
No, she's in Bristol.
Bristol, okay. All right. Pat Donahue, thanks for the €15. Appoint R.E. Sheridan, interview R.E. Nina Turner. She would have sold out. When running Dem, she scolded those criticizing the squad, loses election, then immediately changes her tune and becomes critical again. Yeah, if that conversation were a bit slower paced and it were a bit easier to organize thoughts and articulate them, I don't know if I would have thought of that point right away, although it did occur to me. But the thing I did want to say about Nina Turner is I remember she actually told Jordan after she lost the second time to like stay tuned for a big 2024 plan. Like she was going to run independent or run for president or something. And I guess she took a gig at TYT instead. That was her big plan for 2024. So that is what it is.
Big news if you're a certain kind of person.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Big news for a certain kind of person. Indeed. All right, folks, let's get started. We have some great segments for you this evening and some headlines. Our first headline, though, is a tribute to the great Daniel Ellsberg, famous whistleblower, leaker of the Pentagon Papers. Stella Morris, wife of Julian Assange, posted a clip of him speaking at the Logan Symposium in London in 2014, talking about the risks that leakers take, journalists take, and so this is a fitting way to start the show. Let's pass it to the late, great American hero, no doubt, Daniel Ellsberg.
I think that journalists, like members of the public, don't really realize how much of the current policy and actions is effectively being kept secret from them. They're impressed with how much they're able to find out though it's usually about very long ago past things, past when it's really relevant. It's now interesting, but no longer could really affect events. I would like them to realize that at any given time, the government officials are lying to the public and to them very effectively, face to face. They're good at fooling journalists. If they weren't, they would lose their jobs. And they are good at it. So the secrets can be kept, and the journalists should know that whatever they're told, the question to ask is, what's the real policy behind this? What's really happening? Who knows? They should go on the assumption, by the way, that if the policy looks reckless or crazy or stupid, it almost surely is those. Possibly not, but there probably is not information that makes it reasonable. And there are almost certainly I would say, people inside who can see as well as they do that this is a reckless, crazy, or criminal policy. And the trick is to look for those people, know they exist, and find them, and then get them to realize that taking a risk of exposure, which you try to minimize as much as possible, can't reduce it to zero, that risk can be worth their putting this information out.
Sounds right-wing to me. He's a right-winger. The right-winger.
Fuck yeah, I bet he voted for Trump.
Exactly.
He has that look about him.
You know, I remember Joe Scarborough getting all offended that people compare Julian Assange to Daniel Ellsberg. Daniel Ellsberg didn't just leak information willy-nilly. Meanwhile, Daniel Ellsberg advocated, obviously, for the pardoning and release. And so, you know, just obviously a big loss. He lived a full life and a good life. I remember a friend of the show, Lauren Steiner, passed around a portion of an email that Ellsberg sent to his contacts when he got the diagnosis of terminal cancer. And he was in very good spirits about it. He said, I plan to help journalists who I admire right until the end. He gave a great line. He says, I work best under a deadline. I work best under one of the greats, no doubt.
And looking at Ellsberg, we often we talk a lot about how there's been this shift where now the conservatives are the ones speaking out against militarism or speaking up for freedom of speech. I don't know what Ellsberg's politics were in the 60s around that time, but he was a former Marine. It would be surprising if he had been listening to the Doors in the 60s. Like, that's probably not where he was coming from. Right. And a lot of the whistleblowers today are coming out of the military. And I don't think I've ever known a left-wing person who joined the military. So the idea that this is only people on the left there's always been a certain contingent of conservatives who are coming from a more values and perhaps libertarian oriented point of view who don't agree with things like Vietnam and are willing to stand up against them. But when you call them all right-wing MAGA people, you can't join together with those people, which I know we're going to be covering Pasta's interview with Cornel. That was some of what he addressed very well in that interview.
Sorry, my phone acted up on me just there. Pasta's in the chat, by the way, but he's not in the YouTube chat. He's over in the Rockfin chat. I see you over there, Pasta. Thanks for watching, and thanks for being a committed alternative media consumer over there on Rockfin. I'm going to try to keep my eye on the Rockfin chat as best I can, but it is hard. We got a lot of stuff going on here. Let's take a couple more super chats, folks, before we get into our second headline of the evening. Brits, man, DD greater than the Vanguards, man. I tell you, that Vanguard segment, gift that keeps on giving, man. We're going to get royalties off of that thing when we're 80 years old.
You said it. You said it.
Exactly, yeah.
We're not starting shit.
No, not tonight, not tonight. Courtney, thanks for the $10. Appreciate that very much. Happy Father's Day. Thank you, Courtney.
Was that for me or Keaton or both of us?
These are we split these like we split everything else.
We've both been irresponsible enough to reproduce.
Right, exactly.
It wasn't
Indeed.
as irresponsible when I did it, though. You have no
You didn't know the
excuse.
world was ending?
I mean, I kind of did. I named my theater company End Times, but you
All
know,
right, so
I mean, people thought I was
we busted
crazy.
my balls for.
Back then, it wasn't as obvious.
Right, that's true.
We were
That's
like,
true.
"Why do you think that?" Nobody ever says that to me anymore.
Jonathan Bustamante, thank you for the $2. Let's educate Chicagoans on pizza.
Yeah, I got a fucking bat right in educating
Yeah.
motherfuckers.
Abiding, thank you very much. Appreciate that for the 99 cents. Kameshwari Kate, these are fighting words. West Coast Pale Ale, best beer in North America. The West Coast Pale Ales are not bad. They're not bad. I like a Sierra Nevada. And the West Coast IPAs are good. They're good in the hot weather because they're a little lighter, a little thinner body. But nothing beats the creaminess and juiciness of those New England IPAs. They're just frothy feel in your mouth. You can juggle them around your mouth. So, yeah.
All right.
We'll agree to disagree on that.
This isn't a super chat, but I'm gonna give Courtney a thank you on the show. Okay, so somebody in one of the Facebook groups I followed put up weird book covers. So this was a book from 1964 called Communism, Hypnotism, and the Beatles, with like a line drawing of the Beatles in that era with the mop tops. And I posted it. I said, "My kingdom for this book." She found a PDF of that book for me.
Oh, wow.
So thank you very much.
Thank you, Courtney. That's cool. That's awesome. All righty. Let's go to headline number 2. We have not covered this story in a while, but this is actually quite urgent. I mean, it's been urgent for a while, but I think right now it's becoming even more urgent, as we can see here from The Guardian. Activists push for referendum to put Cop City on the ballot in Atlanta. The effort requires organizers to collect about 70,000 signatures from Atlanta registered voters in 60 days. So a tall order here, but a broad coalition of groups in Atlanta has launched a referendum to give voters a chance to say whether they want the controversial police and fire department training center known as Cop City built in a forest southeast of the city. The effort requires organizers, like we just mentioned, to collect about 70,000 signatures from voters in 60 days. Then the questioning of the city canceling its agreement with the Atlanta Police Foundation to build the $90 million center can be added to municipal election ballots in November. The push comes after an estimated 1,000 people who showed up at City Hall on June 5th proved insufficient to stop Atlanta's City Council from approving about $67 million for Cop City. Meanwhile, machines have already begun clear-cutting trees on the project's 171-acre footprint in South River Forest. So, yeah, they had a massive turnout to protest the approval of the $67 million. That meeting went on for hours and hours and hours. I don't believe they dismissed that meeting until very early the following morning, like 5 a.m. But despite the uproar, they were able to vote through that first significant chunk of funds. We talked about Cop City when we first found out of plans to build it. In cities as plagued by the kinds of problems of poverty as Atlanta is, to spend $90 million on a fake city seems like money that can go towards housing in a real city rather than build this zone. And so there have just been some horrible developments down there that we will cover more thoroughly in the days and weeks to come. But right now, it's a 60-day mad dash to get this on the ballot. And when you think about it, this makes the most sense because what do we hear a lot, right? A lot of the retort to defund the police and things like that is, well, actually, black people like cops, right? Actually, most black people don't want the police defunded. They want more cops. And look, in some cases, when voters vote, that turns out to be true. Eric Adams won a lot of African-American votes in New York City to become mayor. But in some cases, that is not true. Obviously, Brandon Johnson rode a wave of African-American support to become the mayor of Chicago against the more pro-cop right-wing Democrat in the race. And so if you really want democracy in action, this is what makes the most sense. Let the people decide whether they want it built. It makes total sense. And we hope we can help get the word out however we can to gather those signatures so that this is on the ballot, so that the people can choose.
I mean, in regards to that element, this article did say that based on the polling, slightly more African Americans are against it than for it. So it's not overwhelmingly against it, which does give some, credit. But there's been a lot of polling on this because, of course, you're more likely to be a victim of crime, you're going to be afraid of removing police. Something like Cop City, to me, is not even about policing. That is about preparing to suppress the population, an increasingly restive population. This is Pride Month now, and it culminates in New York City at Stonewall. Right? The gay pride parade ends at Stonewall, where it began. And something I will sometimes point out to my tour groups if I'm over there is Stonewall would be impossible today because the police would never allow that to happen. When you look at the story of Stonewall, that the police called for backup and a car did drive up, and when the crowd turned on the car, they drove away, and the police wound up barricaded inside the Stonewall with 2,000 gays, lesbians, and trans people throwing bottles and rocks at the Stonewall. They'd shoot those motherfuckers today so fast. And then they'd say we were being attacked. We were under attack. There were radicals in the group. There were violent people in the group. People from outside the community. They love to go for that. There's no way that would happen. There's no way that would happen. They would literally, the police were not as equipped. They were not as militarized. Today, they would bring in the tanks.
Yeah, it would look like a National Guard response.
Right. There would be no Stonewall riot today. The Stonewall riots would never have happened today. Things like Cop City are about that. It's about because you have an increasingly restive population that is increasingly less invested in the establishment and its institutions. They're getting ready to take the mask off and put the people down. It's interesting when you look at the angle they've taken on this, I think, to try to get around the complications, the complicated feelings people have about police, particularly in the Black community. They're selling it as an environmental protection move. They're not selling it as an anti-cop move. They're selling it as protecting the forest that it would be on. It's interesting that they felt they had to go in that direction because clearly that's not the reason. It's not the reason.
Right. And we'll see who backs it, who doesn't, who helps gather signatures for that effort, and who does not. But we will definitely follow up with more Cop City stories between now and that signature deadline, and then hopefully it becomes on the ballot in November, in which case that's a major issue. All right, let's go on to a couple more super chats, and then we'll do headline number 3 before we get into our main courses for the evening. 4 main segments tonight, folks. We got orcas, we got unions, we got pasta, and we got Tucker. That's what's on the menu tonight. All right, here we go. Kuznetsky Bassane, thank you. And by the way, thank you for signing up to become a Patreon member. I saw your name there. We've added you to the scroll, so thank you so much for the $4.99. We appreciate that. The guy with the great name came back, Roy Astorieta.
Damn, that's a
Spanish fun fact.
If you ain't in the mob, you should be with that name, man.
Roy Astorieta, that's a good name. Yeah.
That's great.
Mondongo is a traditional Spanish tripe soup. Fun fact. Interesting. That is a fun fact. Did you mention that earlier?
Mm-mm.
Did we mention that? Or that was just a random fact. Interesting.
It's a random. Okay.
All right. Well, thanks.
I know what not to eat if I'm in Spain.
Exactly. You're not going to Spain, right? This fall, you're going to Italy and Greece.
Yes.
All right. So Russell will be broadcasting live from the Mediterranean this fall. Where are you going? September?
That's going to be my live from Pompeii album.
When are you going? In September?
September 5th to October 5th.
Okay. My father-in-law is going to Italy in October, so you might cross paths. I burnt my candle. Thank you. Father's Day. Thank you, Jay the Informant. We appreciate that.
Another
very,
one?
very much. Indeed.
Another one of mine? Jesus.
It's a very generous donation. Nicole Vance, happy Father's Day, gentlemen. Love you. Love you too,
Thank you,
Nicole.
Nicole.
Thank you so much.
Thank
We
you.
appreciate that. We appreciate that. Very, very kind of you. All righty. Let's go to our third and final sort of appetizer here. Okay, this is a fun one. This is a fun segment. This caught my eye on Twitter. Gavin Newsom sat down with Sean Hannity, and they got into a back and forth about economic policy. And Gavin Newsom thought it good to bring up the fact that about 70% of the GDP in this country is generated and resides in blue counties, which to me is a way of basically admitting that the liberal class has extracted immense wealth from middle America. Why you think bragging about that on conservative TV is a good look, I don't know. But let's take a look at this interaction here.
Its way to be the fourth largest economy in the world. What are you arguing for? Mississippi's economic policy? Is that, I mean, literally, that's what you're arguing for. Me, if I wanted, the great Sam Brownback's the Kansas policy, I mean, it was a debacle. No economic growth. 71% of the GDP in America are in blue counties. I would 71% of the GDP in America are blue counties. Progressive policies. Okay, that are paying high taxes and 71% of the country's wealth. 7 of the top 10 dependent states.
Hannity is such an idiot. Like, if you made this point to Tucker Carlson, he wouldn't come back.
He would
eviscerate you. He would eviscerate him. He wouldn't come back with the standard, and they're paying high taxes.
Well,
I mean, that's all,
why is that
Hannity
exactly?
knows.
Why is that exactly?
Yeah, right.
Before NAFTA, I don't think the income was distributed that way, was it?
Right, exactly. He would throw it right back in his face. Hannity, all he knows is the standard right wing. But they pay high taxes. You know what I mean? Talk about how Fox News has just cut its own nuts off. You know what I mean? To put Hannity up against him, he doesn't make.
Well, it's an open question. Would Newsom have even sat down with Tucker?
I don't think so. No.
You know, he sat down with Hannity because he knows he's a fucking meatball that he can steamroll like this.
This guy who sips $500 glasses of wine at the French Laundry comes in and says, Mississippi? What, you arguing for Mississippi? Come on. Don't you know rich people live on the coast? Yeah, they know that. They understand that very, very well. That's why they don't like you. It's not an own that you're rich and they're poor. That's kind of their beef with you.
Well, and you look at the distribution of wealth in these places. We covered that with Savvy. The most unequal places, the places with, amazingly, I mean, I think most of us don't know this. That's why I wanted to do that segment. The most regressive taxation is in the blue states.
Right.
You're the governor of California, man. It is South America over there in the inequality of wealth. You have enormous communities living in tents. San Francisco is like a borderline favela at this point. And you're up there bragging about the policies of blue states.
Right. And the GDP of blue counties, the GDP that blue counties hold. All right. Let's let him finish.
You're right. States. Let's say you. No, we're subsidizing your states, Sean.
This sounds like presidential material here. We're subsidizing your states.
Well, this isn't for the Fox people. This is for in case Joe Biden has a heart attack. But
what I'm saying is,
because the libs love this shit.
They love it. But this is the opposite of a presidential message. This is the blue state governor's message. Our states are better than your states.
Well, you know what else it is? It's a classic.
Good luck winning Michigan with that.
It's a classic American message. If you have failed, it is because you are defective.
Right.
Right? We are clear. What's he saying? We're better than you. Right? It couldn't be overall government policy, deindustrialization, because the people in charge are not industrialists, so they didn't give a fuck what would happen if they sent all the industry overseas. We decided to shift to the wired workers, of which, as they called it then, of which Silicon Valley is the product, and that's really who we're beholden to. We shifted our focus to an industry that is not located in the places where your constituents live. But he's gonna present this as a moral sin on their part. This is a very old American Protestant idea. If you're poor, it's your fault.
Exactly.
Policies.
I'm in New York. You're not subsidizing anything from me.
But your philosophy.
I'm getting the hell out of New York, though. Mississippi, Alabama, I'm all for it over New York or California.
Yeah, right. Okay.
I love Mississippi.
Yeah. This is what I mean. Now, this guy's just such a tool bag. Yeah, right. Sean Hannity's going to move to Mississippi. Sean, if you move to Mississippi and you establish that you live full-time in Biloxi, give me your address. I will cut my dick off and mail it to you. That's how confident I am that you will never move to Mississippi.
He would move to Florida or Texas, though.
Florida. He's not moving to Mississippi or Alabama.
Sure. Oh,
he moved to Florida. That's the thing to do for these guys now. Florida, Texas. Yeah. I'd take Mississippi over New York any day. So, yeah, I mean, look, in his case, Hannity is not a formidable adversary in the way that a Tucker Carlson would be. So he can get away with making those points there and not get decimated to the point where he felt it was a good idea to actually clip that and post on social media. But the idea that that's a good look, that bragging about the wealth disparity between coastal blue areas and middle American and southern red areas, to think you come off well in that is quite extraordinary. And I think, Russell was talking about if you had a DeSantis versus Newsom race somehow, that DeSantis would crush him, that lends some credence to your theory, because that argument there is the opposite of the kind of argument you should be making if you want to appeal to the 30% taker states that you call red states or red counties.
Well, that clip alone, they would beat the hell out of him. But I've said this from the beginning. Gavin Newsom is the governor of California. California. I mean, California is as much a failed state as any blue state is. What's he going to run on? People getting stabbed on Market Street? Like, what is he going to run on? The Skid Row in LA? What would he run on? Yeah, I get he's got a whole West Wing thing going on. That only appeals to the hardest core libs, and that's who that's for. He knows his audience. Like you said, that kind of shit, you see libs say things like that all the time on social media, because their politics, insofar as they have one, is a politics of hating people who are poor and uneducated, as long as they're white.
Well, the thing is, I mean, California is a failed state by our standards, in the sense that it is a neoliberal, highly unequal, woke capitalist hellhole. It's not a failed state on the balance sheet. They actually are running a surplus, which is the Clintonian model, right? All that matters is the balance sheet. That is neoliberalism at its core. And you smooth over the cruelty of that with all of the woke stuff. And that's Gavin Newsom in a nutshell. Now, does that pass muster nationally? Maybe, but maybe not. Again, that's where it depends on what the Republicans do.
I think the images out of California are just fucking too horrific. Now, now New York, and I'm not economist enough, or I haven't dug into this enough to explain why. New York has the greatest wealth inequality of any state in the country, another capital of the blues. But New York does not have that scale of destruction in its main cities. It does have places like Rochester that you don't see a lot of pictures of, because it's one decimated Rust Belt town among many. Buffalo. I was just in Buffalo. I mean, from what I understand, the east side of Buffalo, which I didn't see, is the rough side of Buffalo. Side of Buffalo I was on, it looked fine. It was just depopulated. It was just creepy Twilight Zone-esque kind of, there are no people in this town. Am I in an intergalactic zoo or something? Where they just put me in a fake town. Like, where is everybody? But so we do have some towns like that, but the kind of like San Francisco, LA, we don't have that in New York. Now, why don't we, given that we have the greatest inequality? I can't answer that. I don't know why. I don't know why they have it and we don't.
Yeah. I don't know either. I know in New York City, obviously, highly, highly unequal. And
it's
I don't
highly
spend enough
unequal,
time
but we don't have scenes like that here.
Yeah.
Why
I'm
not?
Sure why.
I don't know. Even in the Bronx, which we call the Forgotten Borough here, because for whatever reason, it's the only part of New York you can go to, like the South Bronx, that kind of feels like New York in the 80s. And it's not like that, but it tastes a little bit like that. And even that is not like what you see in LA.
Right. All right, folks, let's take a couple more super chats while we are at that. And before we start our main segments, we do want to plug our Patreon. We have some new patron supporters sign up this week. Your names are on the scroll, so thank you so much. You can go to patreon.com/DueDissidence and help support this show. We really, really appreciate everybody who signs up at Patreon. You can go to DueDissidence.substack.com, or you can hit that join button right underneath the screen right now, right near the subscribe button, and help keep us afloat by supporting us on the regular here on YouTube. Patrons and paid Substack subscribers get call-in access to this program, as well as access to 2 monthly patron and Substack exclusive live streams, which we do over on Rumble. We had our second one of those last Monday or Wednesday we did it. And it was a lot of fun. That was a great show. So you get 2 full-length shows exclusive to patrons and paid Substack subscribers. So you get an extra, 4 or 5 hours of us every month, plus call-in access to the show, plus the moral satisfaction.
Naked.
Yeah, right. Yeah, the moral satisfaction of supporting independent media. So thank you for to everybody who has done that.
Oh! Look, I wasn't on the ball. I wasn't on it.
Oh, do we pass 660? Wow, look at that. That's amazing. I didn't even realize we had that many people watching. I was like, damn, where'd they all come from? I haven't looked at it in a while. Usually I check every few minutes.
It didn't click for me. Well, because I was looking at this. A lot of people are saying the difference is climate. Okay, so this is why that's probably a factor. But I remember New York when you had literally refrigerator boxes lined up down entire blocks with people each living in their own refrigerator box. So I have experienced in New York with LA style homelessness. So that's why I don't feel like you can't have that in New York because it's too cold. Because we did at one time. Although I'm sure that's a contributing factor today. I would agree.
Yeah, I would imagine. Silver Surfer, not a super chat, but we're catching the Father's Day messages because we like them. So even if you can't put a buck or two on them, we'll try and feature as many of these as we can. Thank you, Silver Surfer. Appreciate it. Kill your egregores. Happy Father's Day to your great fathers in the chat. Yes, to all the dads out there. Indeed. Franklin Warsham, thanks for the $9.99. Anytime I leave my neighborhood enclave, I get depressed. Good job on the JD interview. Here's $10. Thank you, Franklin. What city do you live in that you get depressed every time you leave your neighborhood? Are you out there on the West Coast? Are you in LA or San Francisco or New York, one of the cities that we were just mentioning?
I don't know where he is.
Yeah. Let us know.
Some place where Javalia is the best coffee available. That's a rough town, man.
Russ is never going to let you live that down no matter how many super chats you give us. Jay the Informant. Age should be included in all poll data. Cop City. That's interesting. I would like to see how that breaks down along age lines. That's interesting. That's an interesting point. Dwayne, thanks for the $5. I'm lobbying Kit to make Team Orca's theme song Anima by Tool. Is that how you say that name? I don't, because they don't say the name in the song. So I never knew exactly how to pronounce it. Check the lyrics. It fits. All right. I haven't listened to Tool since probably junior high school. Not that they are a junior high quality band. They're a good band. But I just have not listened to them in quite some time. I listened to Perfect Circle still, which was the side project by the Tool frontman. For some reason, I just find their stuff a little more accessible than Tool's. But yeah, Tool, good band, good call. I will look into that though. I will check that out to see how those lyrics match up with the Orca theme.
Some people, to jack their subscribers, they go and jump onto some ridiculous presidential campaign. I talked to Kate and he was like, what are we going to do? I said, let's appeal to the Satanists. And he was like, you're crazy. The Satanists aren't going to join. But hey, man.
There you go.
All right. So did it pay off or not?
Well, let's see. Become a YouTube member and prove Russell correct.
I told you, the Satanists, if we coddle the Satanists,
yes,
they're gonna sign up in droves.
Exactly. We're going to coddle the Satanists. Indeed.
See?
Satan loves you. 666. Beautiful.
They're all over.
All right. Well, you know, we'll look into it. You know, it's not too much worse than. Yeah, you know.
Satan is big business.
Satan's big business. Yeah, exactly. Here we go. Let's see. Long story short, thank you. Was Gavin Newsom in A View to a Kill? Gavin Newsom is what was A View to a Kill? What was that? Who was it? Who was that? Russell, do you remember the actor from that?
That wasn't Christopher Walken. Wasn't Christopher
remember.
Walken in A View to a Kill? All
Maybe.
right, I'm gonna look it up now.
Yeah, look it up.
I kind of checked out on the Bond franchise in that era. View to a Kill.
Yeah, I don't have much of a memory for the Bond movies. Like, I liked the Bond movies when I was a kid, and I liked the Pierce Brosnan ones, and I watched.
Oh, that was the one with great. Yeah, I was right. Christopher Walken.
It was Walken. Okay.
And Grace Jones.
Okay.
Yep.
Dwayne Vogel. I'm lobbying kid. Oh, sorry, wrong one. All right. Last one for a while. We will take more. Don't worry. We will get to all your super chats. But Eric Torres, thank you for the $5. Oh, what is wrong with this scroll? There it is. Okay. I live in Santa Ana, California. There are large swaths of California that hate Newsom. He's been a disaster. He killed Medi-Cal for all bill last year. Well, yeah, he promised that he would support it, and then he didn't. You know, what else is new? What else is new? Thank you, Eric. We appreciate that very much. All right, folks. So, as you have no doubt heard by now, orca whales have been ramming into boats in the waters off the Iberian Peninsula. Researchers seem to think that the behavior is imitative and that the pod of killer whales learned this behavior from one whale named White Gladys. Now, White Gladys may have been struck by a boat herself, in which case her motivation could be revenge, or she might simply be playing around. But several boats have been damaged or destroyed. No humans have suffered any injury or death as a result of these attacks.
We have some footage.
Well, we'll get to it. We'll get, there's some social media speculation. But here's a verified video on Instagram that went viral of a rudder being taken by one of these whales.
Arrancó el segundo. We lost both rudders.
Go home and get your fucking shine box.
Yeah, there he is.
It's very salty.
What are you going to do about it? What are you going to do about it? What are you going to do
What
about it?
are you going to do? You're in my fucking house here.
My fucking house here. Now, for their property damage against these luxurious yachts, the orcas have become something of folk heroes online, prompting memes like these that we'll take a look at. Fuck them boats. Fuck them yachts, the anarchist symbol. I like this one from The Dark Knight Rises. There's a storm coming, Mr. Wayne, and you're all going to wonder how you ever thought you can live so large and leave so little for the rest of us. Then there's this one here, of course. The earth will shed the virus of capitalism. Join the orca uprising. Like all class-based movements, however, the media is quick to try and rain on your parade and break up all of the fun. And so this actually ran as a serious article in the Atlantic magazine here. Killer whales are not our friends. Stop rooting for the orcas ramming boats, by Jacob Stern. That's right, a hit piece against the orca whales. Now, I'm sorry. My theory is that he is just jealous of any creature that gets its dick wet. That's my theory.
I mean,
I'm sorry. I don't like to speculate about the the personal lives of people. That's more Russell's lane. Russell's much more comfortable doing that than I am. But if this guy is not a virgin, I don't know who is. I mean, it is almost impossible for me to imagine a guy like this closing with anybody. How?
I mean, the name is a dead giveaway.
J-O-O.
I mean, clearly he's not getting any.
Stop rooting for the Orcas ramming boats by Jacob Stern at the Atlantic. In recent months, orcas in the waters.
He's just jealous the boats are getting rammed.
Yeah, right, exactly. Yeah. In recent months, orcas in the waters off the Iberian Peninsula have taken to ramming boats. The animals have already sunk 3 this year and damaged several more. After one of the latest incidents in which a catamaran lost both of its rudders, the boat's captain suggested that the assailants have grown stealthier and more efficient. The assailants. This is a hateful piece. This is really a smear. This is really a hit piece.
This piece is a hate crime against Mother Nature.
Yeah, I mean, this is the Bernie Bro narrative. They're doing to the Bernie Bros what they're doing to the whales.
And we can't let them.
No, not this time.
We need to support our orca brothers and sisters.
It's not going to fly this time. Absolutely not. We're going to nip this in the bud right here tonight. Looks like they knew exactly what they are doing, he said. Scientists have documented hundreds of orca boat incidents off the Spanish-Portuguese coast since 2020, but news coverage of these attacks is blowing up right now, thanks in part to a creative new theory about why they're happening: cetacean vengeance. Now that's a story. The orcas are doing this on purpose. Well, they're clearly doing it on purpose. They don't run into boats by accident. Alfredo Lopez Fernandez, a biologist at the University of Aveiro in Portugal, told Live Science last month. Of course, we don't know the origin or the motivation, but defensive behavior based on trauma, as the origin of all this, gains more strength for us every day. Lopez Fernandez, who co-authored a 2022 paper on human-orca interactions in the Strait of Gibraltar, speculates that a specific female, known to scientists as White Gladys, may have suffered a critical moment of agony at the hands of humans. White Gladys is actually Marianne Williamson's code name if she ever becomes the president. White Gladys. So I don't know who leaked that to the press and who gave that name to this whale, but they're compromising national security by doing so. That's something that this author should also be aware of. May have suffered a critical moment of agony at the hands of humans, attacked a boat in retaliation, and then taught other whales to do the same. It's almost as if nature is finding a way to resist the encroachments of human beings, which is something that I think liberals were keen to warn us all would happen at some point if we push them too far. I mean, this is liberalism in a nutshell here, right? You push and push and push, and then when the people who have been taking it for so long get a little rowdy and start ramming into the yachts of the wealthy who caused all the problems, they're out of line. I'm sorry. Like I said, this is the Bernie Bro narrative all over.
Yeah, Hitchcock saw this coming.
Yeah, exactly.
He called it.
Yes. Different animal, a little easier to budget, which we'll get to in a moment. But whatever the truth of this assertion, White Gladys and her kin have quickly ascended to folk heroic status on the internet. What the marine biologists are framing as revenge based on one traumatic experience may be a piece of a larger mobilization towards balance. The poet Alexis Pauline Gumbs tweeted before referring to the killer whales as revolutionary mother teachers. Media figures and academics are expressing solidarity with their orca comrades and support for orca saboteurs. One widely circulating graphic shows a pod smashing a boat from below, above the words, "Join the Orca Uprising," and you can even purchase it in a sparkly sticker form. That's capitalism.
Which we will be selling for $1.99 at the end of the show.
Exactly. Yet all of this fandom and projection tends to overlook important facts. Again, virgin. This guy, virgin, I'm telling you. First, these orcas are likely to be playing with the boats rather than attacking them. And second, if one insists on judging killer whales in human terms, it's plain to see they aren't heroes, but sadistic jerks. Oh!
Where the fuck do you get the balls?
Where the fuck do you get the... Again, this is hateful speech. This is a smear. This is actually hate speech. This should actually be pulled. The Atlantic should actually retract this. How dare you impugn an entire species? Sadistic jerks?
There's like the scene in Any Hall. I picture this guy pitching this to his wife instead of having sex with her. I think you're using this whale subject as an excuse not to have sex with me.
Right. Yeah.
Is it true? Am I obsessing on these whales to not be sexually intimate with my wife?
The recent incidents, none of which has resulted in any injury to humans, are simply the result of curiosity, Monica Weiland-Shields, the co-director of the Orca Behavior Institute in Washington, told me. A juvenile may have started interacting in this way with boats, she said, and then its habits spread through the local community of killer whales. Such cultural trends have been observed before. In the Pacific Northwest, orcas have been playing with buoys and crab pots for years. In the late 1980s, one group of orcas there famously took to wearing salmon hats. Is ramming boats the new donning fish? Shields believes that
B-52's tribute.
Yeah. Shields believes that the theory makes more sense than Lopez Fernandez's appeal to orca trauma. White Gladys shows no physical evidence of injury or trauma, Shields told me, so any critical moment of agony is purely speculative. Also, humans have given orcas ample reason to retaliate for hundreds of years. We've invaded their waters, kidnapped their young, and murdered them in droves, and yet there is not a single documented instance of orcas killing humans in the wild. Why would they react only now? Well, they're committing property crimes. You know,
they're like the Chinese. They're long-term thinkers.
Right, they're long-term thinkers, and you know, we don't have a problem with property damage here on the left. We don't want to, we don't want to hurt anybody. But this is how you fight back, right? And though recent events may fit the story of these orcas being anti-colonial warriors, you can't just anthropomorphize animals selectively. What about all the other evidence we have of orcas' cruelty or even wickedness? Well, they're called killer whales. I mean, they don't have that nickname for nothing. Scientists say they hunt and slaughter sharks by the dozen, picking out the liver from each one and leaving the rest of the carcasses to rot uneaten. That's interesting. That's an interesting fact.
I've read that.
Yeah, that's interesting. Orcas kill for sport. They push, drag, and spin around live prey, including sea turtles, seabirds, and sea lions. Again, smears. These are smears. I feel like this is what they would say about, Jimmy Dore, when he tweets something mean to some people in good standing with the media. They should have named that White Gladys. They should have called it Jimmy Dore. There's a whale, the killer whale known as Jimmy Dore, ramming into boats in the Strait of Gibraltar.
Joe Rogan.
Yeah, Joe Rogan. Yeah, Joe Rogan.
It's being led by a whale with a suspicious resemblance to Joe Rogan.
Some go so far as to risk beaching themselves in order to snag a baby seal, not to consume, but simply to torture it to death. Once you start applying human ethical standards to apex predators, things turn dark fast.
What a fucking moron.
It's great. Perhaps orca uprising was inevitable. Humanity does have, after all, a long history of freighting cetaceans with higher meaning. Moby Dick is, among other things, a symbol of the sublime. The biblical whale, or is it a large fish that swallows Jonah, is an instrument of divine retribution, a means of punishing the wicked in much the same way some have framed the boat-wrecking orcas. The whale 52 Blue, known as the loneliest whale in the world because she speaks in frequently inaudible or at least incomprehensible to her brethren, has become a canvas for all shades of human sorrow and angst. I just thought of a joke that I really can't make. If this were Rumble, I would have made it, but I'm going to have to let it go. Got to be disciplined. Orcas in particular have long...
One of us has to be.
One of us has to be. Sorry, folks. Sorry to disappoint. Orcas in particular have long been objects of both fear and sympathy, in some cases with an explicitly anti-capitalist tint. The 1993 classic Free Willy. Yeah, no, they show that at Tusker's commie meetings. That's what they begin every meeting with a screening of Free Willy. Classic communist cinema.
Well, Free Willy. No, they have their own version. They intercut with Potemkin.
Yeah, right, exactly. Centers on a conniving park owner's scheme to profit off of the bond between a child and a young killer whale. And more recently, the 2013 documentary Blackfish chronicles SeaWorld's real-life exploitation of captive orcas. I never saw that. I actually have to see that. The orca uprising narrative fits neatly into this lineage. In our present era of environmental catastrophe, Shields told me, it's appealing to think that nature might fight back, that the villains get their just desserts. This is the same formula as like a Bernie Bro hit piece, which is they're assholes, they're assholes, they're assholes.
They're
yeah,
fairy
they have
dusters.
a legitimate beef. They're assholes.
Fairy
You
dusters.
know what I mean?
This is the fairy duster part.
The fairy duster part, where they acknowledge, yeah, your concerns are valid, but you're still an asshole. And then at the end, but projection and anthropomorphization, right? Exactly. Projection and anthropomorphization are only shortcuts to a shallow sympathy. What a sentence. Projection and anthropomorphization are only shortcuts to a shallow sympathy. That was actually the runner-up to be on Martin Luther King's tombstone. That was a quote that he, almost went with that. Orcas really are capable of intense grief. They're also capable of tormenting seal pups as a hobby. They are intelligent, emotionally complex creatures, but they are not us.
I mean, actually, that sounds like they're exactly us.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
That sounds like that. Do you think that doesn't sound like humanity?
Orcas are capable of intense grief, also capable of tormenting seal pups. Yeah, sounds like Fauci. That's what the whale should be called. They should have named the white Gladys should be Dr. Fauci. The whale goes by the name of Fauci. Oh, man.
And you see how they use this racially divisive rhetoric, Why not just Gladys? White Gladys.
White
right?
Gladys. No,
right?
Extremely hateful article. Extremely
they're
divisive.
making her a MAGA voter.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Extremely hateful, divisive piece from The Atlantic, trying to gin up fear of the killer whale for simply protecting its waters. First of all, what do you got to be on a boat for?
It's very evocative of Time's Up, because last I heard, it's not the killer whales that sexually assault swimmers; it's the dolphins.
That's true.
Once again, they don't want to talk about that. They never want to talk about the dolphins.
Right, exactly. No, dolphins have this image and this reputation. Nobody impugns the dolphins. No, go after the easy target, the killer
and the
whale,
dolphins
right?
never fuck with a yacht, right? You notice that?
Mm-hmm.
So they can assault all the swimmers they want as long as they don't fuck with the yacht.
Right. You go after the rich people, now you get smeared in the press.
Now it's a problem.
David Frum sicks his dogs on you there, right? The Atlantic. Unbelievable. I mean,
libs are marine life perverts. I mean, what about that octopus? That guy fucking the octopus in the Netflix documentary there. That was disgusting.
Guy fucking the octopus.
My octopus teacher or something. Well, you fucking octopus. They better give you an Oscar.
Yeah, right. Exactly. See, I told you I had faith in this segment. You were doubtful that this would be a good segment, and I said, "No, trust me. I think this is going to come out pretty good." Yeah.
Okay. So we do have some footage of these whales getting more violent. Now we're not sure where this footage came from, but it has been making the rounds, and it might be that these whales are kicking their revolution up to another level. So this happened on a Jeff Bezos yacht, and it didn't end well for them. There's a leak from one of the workers there.
I have a suspicion this could be a deep fake. This could be a false flag. See for yourself.
I'm okay now.
I don't know. That looks a little dated to me. That looks like it might be from, I don't know, 1977.
Yeah, was that Bo Derek? Is that Bo Derek?
That is Bo Derek. That was her first
like
major
somebody
film
took off Bo Derek's leg.
Yeah.
I mean, well, that was, she was ahead of her time, being a legless supermodel.
That's right. That's right. Was that her leg or her arm? It almost looked like
no, it was her leg.
Okay. Interesting.
The orca took her leg.
Interesting. Well, we have our suspicions about the authenticity of that footage, but here is some footage inspired by this story. So, we interviewed Jordan Sheridan a week ago, and despite our differences with Jordan, we were, kind of inspired by his on-the-ground reporting, and so Russell thought that he should do some on-the-ground reporting of himself, for himself, and we thought this was a related story because obviously the orcas are ramming into boats in the Strait of Gibraltar. But here at home, Russell got word that there was another assault by marine life on the people of New York City down in Coney Island, Brooklyn. So do you want to set this up?
Well,
you did a little investigating yourself.
And, Jordan's all like, I'm on the ground. I'm like, motherfucker, I can go on the ground. So I went out to Coney Island. I went on the ground. I did my on-the-ground reporting. I even got some hot dogs out of it. Yeah. So we'll take a look at what my investigation uncovered.
Yeah, this is an investigative piece.
For less than the price of a movie, you can see a cast of real people performing unbelievable acts.
Hello, dissidents. I've been inspired by Jordan Sheridan because he does a lot of on-the-ground reporting and important work. So, we've been talking back and forth, and I told him, Jordan, you really don't have enough boobs in your docs. I think if you have more boobs, it would help. So we're going to combine that important on-the-ground reporting and boobs. So here we are at Coney Island for the Mermaid Day Parade, one of the most anticipated events in New York. And behind me, of course, is the original Nathan's Famous. If you do come to New York, you're going to get a hot dog. You want that New York hot dog? Only Nathan's. We call the other ones dirty water dogs. Hey, what brought you out to the Mermaid Parade?
I love mermaids, I love parades, and I love the ocean.
All right.
I'm looking for Ariel. Have you seen Ariel, my daughter?
I haven't seen Ariel. In China, nobody's going to see her.
I heard that. That's a shame.
Hey, have you ever done the Mermaid Parade before?
Yeah, hell yeah.
You do it every year?
Pretty much, yes.
Why do you do it?
We're awesome, baby.
I love that guy. We got a little creature from the Black Lagoon. And you can see off in the distance there, a lot of people call that the Eiffel Tower of Brooklyn. That is the old parachute drop, based on actually a training method they used to use for Russian paratroopers. So Jordan Sheridan, all I can say is eat your heart out. You've got some competition here. This is what on-the-ground reporting looks like here at DueDissidence. Happy Mermaid Day Parade.
There you go. Got to the bottom of that.
That's it. I did my own investigation, and that's what I found. So Jordan, man, you're not the only one who can go on the ground. I went on the ground, and that was some very serious stuff I uncovered there.
Yeah. Yep, indeed. And we're sorry to get you too excited, folks. For those who expecting real boobs, we're not allowed to show full boobs on YouTube,
the Rumble version.
Right, the Rumble version. We'll put on that. But no, Mermaid Parade is always a fun time. I was always interested. I wish I had gone to the Mermaid Parade when I lived in New York City. I never you had never made it down there either, and you love Coney Island.
I've never been to. The reason I went was one. As you could probably tell from all the traveling and bucket list stuff I'm doing this year, I'm definitely in a don't put off to next year what you could do this year frame of mind. I think we're on the verge of World War III. Fuck it. Right. I've never gone to the Mermaid Parade. Don't assume it's there next year to go to. Go now.
Go now.
Just go. So I went, but also that event qualifies me for a press pass in New York, which is going to be very important with the election season cranking up. You have to do at least 4 events that were covered by the police to qualify. So that qualified me.
Now you got it. Beautiful.
I mean, I have to apply for it, but yeah.
Right, but now you
right,
get one.
Right? Come on, man. Jordan's got nothing on me.
Right,
on the ground reporting my ass. Look, man. We've been talking to him. I'm like, Jordan. You interview all these MAGA people. I am telling you, I've been out in that part of the country. A lot of them would show their boobs if you asked them. If you ask them to show their boobs in the interview, they will, and boom, you're going to be
back in the game,
golden.
baby.
Back in the game.
Exactly. One of the reasons I never went to the parade is because I've never done anything on a weekend in New York City because I would always work weekends because I worked tourism. So I never had a Saturday to go and do something.
I had
during the week.
I had a gig, but it was for a bigger company, so I was able to get out of it.
Yeah, there you go. Tusker, thanks for the $20. Happy Father's Day, Keaton. Thank you, Tusker, and happy no child support to Russell. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Tusker.
No, Russell, says Virtuoso. Thanks for the $2. Staten Island is the forgotten borough.
Well, but it's not fucked up out there. It's just like boring.
Yeah.
I mean, there's nothing much going on. It's a lot of McMansions and landfill.
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
So Dwayne was just asking, was there nudity? Yes, there was a lot of nudity. I cut around it. You can't do that on YouTube.
Cut around it. Yeah, we can't show actual nudity on YouTube, but we cut around it. Yeah,
and you want to say it's a double standard because I was able to do it with the king. What's the father in Little Mermaid? Triton? Is that Triton?
Is that his name? I don't know.
Well,
I haven't watched that movie in forever.
There's still that double standard. You know what? I'll tell you a fun little bit of my history. One of the actresses in one of my shows was the person who brought the lawsuit against the Mermaid Parade that allowed women to go topless in that parade.
Oh, interesting.
She went topless in the parade and they arrested her and she sued and won.
Oh, interesting.
Yep.
That's a fun little fact. I'll give you a fun little Little Mermaid fact of my own. The actor who voiced Sebastian the Crab in the original Disney cartoon was named Sam Wright. He played Mufasa in the original Lion King Broadway cast. He lived in Walden, which is the town just north of Newburgh, where I grew up, and he had like this great little community theater there. So I actually knew him.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, he was a very, very good theater actor, and he directed plays and stuff like that. And he's a famous guy. I mean, not famous because he was a voice actor mostly, but that's an iconic role, Sebastian the Crab. Everybody knows him.
Well, of course. Yeah.
Yeah, indeed. Meteor Dreams. Thanks for the $4.99. I live in L.A., and I've never seen more license plates from other states, especially Florida, so I'm not buying the narrative that people are fleeing. That people are fleeing California. Yeah, I don't know if California has a population drain.
I
know
mean,
New York does.
no, they do. They just dropped an article of all 50 states. Yeah, they're losing population. New York is losing the most population.
Yeah, New York's losing a lot.
Yeah,
a lot.
No, really, we're number one in population loss by percentage in the country.
Well, yeah, I mean, the property taxes just make it very difficult for anybody to retire here, because the property taxes here are like rent. You know, you're talking about $800-900 a month. That's rent to a lot of people. Long story short, thanks for the $5. The reason California has more homeless is because of the weather and not prosecuting drugs. Most of the homeless are not actually from California. Interesting. I couldn't speak to that.
Well, for a while, and this was under de Blasio. De Blasio was buying bus tickets for the homeless. He was sending them to Florida.
Yeah, I did hear about that.
Yep.
I did hear about that. Oh, we have a, all right, because you asked, because you give a super chat. Okay, so are you the guy who keeps emailing me? Why aren't you guys covering the toxic leadership of INN in the news network and how they are using their influence to blacklist, silence people?
Because they're blacklisting and silencing us. Jesus fucking Christ, the answer is in the question.
Right. They're threatening us. I think you've emailed us a couple times or tweeted at us a couple times telling me to get in touch with somebody who wants to tell me something. Why don't you just give them my email and have them tell me what they want to tell me? Why would I seek out dirt on another channel who are friends of ours? Why would I do that? I don't understand. If you have something to tell me, then go ahead and tell me. What are you telling me? Oh, get in touch with this person. They'll tell you something. Well, if you have my email, so to give my email to them. Have him email me. What are you making me? What, I'm going to play detective? Why? Why would I do that? I have no idea what you're talking about. All right. But anyway, thanks for this. Thanks for the super chat. Now you finally have a response from me. Okay. If somebody has something to say, they can say it to me. All right. You got the email. I know you got the email. So go ahead. Dave Dillerai.
And INN, if you're listening, now you can release my hamsters.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Dave Dillerai, $2. Animal stories. Yes. What animal stories? Oh, from the orca thing? Yeah, no, I love that orca thing. Oh, okay. Now you're going to do the... Oh, okay. So you super chat bombed us. All right, we'll take them. Also, why aren't you covering...
Take your money.
Yeah, how Tara Reid defends the sexual predator Scott Ritter. Other people do the same for their benefit, a.k.a. access journalism.
Oh, Jesus. We're all members of the Hellfire Club. We're fucking sick, kinky freaks.
Yeah.
Okay.
Scott Ritter has a channel. Scott Ritter's spoken at events. The Scott Ritter case has been litigated and settled, and that's that. I don't know what you mean. Why aren't you covering how Tara Reid defends the sexual predator Scott Ritter? The day I lecture Tara Reid on issues like that is a day that I'm not going to see. That would be my answer to that. As for access journalism...
Who do we have access?
Yeah, who do we have access to?
It's fucking news to me.
Yeah, news to me. How
fucking,
about people...
Fucking Cornel's running for president. Cornel, I think he went on. There's a kid with like 6 subscribers. Cornel was on there the other day.
We're waiting in line for Cornel West. We emailed him. I don't know if anybody, by the way, can put us in touch with Cornel West. That'd be great.
There's some
of that access journalism.
There's some kid with 6 subscribers who only plays old games of Asteroid and Joust.
Right.
He was just on there, on Twitch.
All right, he's got.
He went on and played Joust with him.
How about people not covering how Savage Joy uses her following to encourage the harassment of others who disagree with her?
I have no fucking idea who that is. Do you know who that is?
Yeah, I know who that is. I have not seen a tweet of Savage Joy's probably since 2018. But so I don't know. I'm not sure.
I mean,
listen. It's free.
She's got a great name.
Yeah, it's a good name. It's free to just send us an email telling us what you're talking about, rather than send me an email saying I should get in touch. You sent me an email literally telling me to get in touch with someone on Twitter and ask them what dirt they have on INN. I'm not going to do that. If you have my email, give them my email. If they want to get in touch with us, they can send us an email and tell us what they got to tell us.
I can't reveal my identity, but the guys at INN, one time, they tipped under 15%. You didn't hear it from me.
Right. You didn't hear it from me. Dirt. All right, I got to take this one. This one is from the wife, my wife Amanda. See, there's our picture. That's on our wedding day, by the way. As you can see, that little picture there. Happy Father's Day with a kiss. Well, I'll give you a kiss back if you're still up. It's been 8:25 minutes. So thank you, dear. Love you very much. See, that's a picture of us on our wedding day. What is that? That's 8 years ago. 8 years ago. A younger, clean-shaven Keaton.
You hear that? You hear that? That's what joy looks like. He doesn't have time to be obsessing on what the fuck INN is. Fucking conspiracy. Fucking guy's married with kids. He has a life.
Yeah, right. What the fuck am I?
Not even
sending me any
a little more
information.
concerned with putting food on the table than obsessing on whatever fucking shit you're going on about that INN said to you in a chat once.
Yeah. Oh, God. All right. Well, yeah. I mean, no, it wasn't even that. It was sending me a message saying you should get in touch. I forget who the Twitter account was. They said somebody on Twitter wants to get in touch with you about INN. Well, why can't they? What's stopping them? I don't understand.
It's like you're supposed to meet in a parking garage with this person.
I'm about to meet you.
What the fuck are you?
What do you mean? I don't understand. Save your money, please. Don't spend any more money with us. Just have them email me for free. All right, fine.
Yeah, that's it.
Okay, there you go. All right, excellent. All right, let's go on to segment number 2. We'll be taking some more super chats a bit later on in the evening here. All right, folks. So this is something that I suspect we'll have more to say on tomorrow. By the way, Post-Duopoly Show episode 5 on Revolutionary Blackout Network with Nick, CJ, and Kit from Hardlands. That is tomorrow, at 8 p.m. Eastern over on the Revolutionary Blackout Network's YouTube channel and Rumble. So please be there. That will be a lot of fun. We're looking forward to that. And I suspect we'll have some more to say about this because this was quite the story here. So
look. Oh, God. This is so nice. Look at you. You got an AIDS dig. Oh. It's so nice. It's you. It's you for once.
I caught one. You
caught one.
Must be all the beer. Must be drinking too much.
He's a drunk. He's a fucking drunk.
Yeah.
Everybody knows that. Isn't that obvious? He does have a little gray hair. A little bit.
I do. A little gray on the sides.
Coming in on
the sides. Yep. Indeed, I do. All right. So, in coordination with a rally in Philadelphia this week, 17 major labor unions all endorsed Joe Biden's 2024 re-election campaign. The AFL-CIO, one of the event's main organizers, issued its earliest endorsement ever in a campaign cycle. They, of course, did endorse Joe Biden's first campaign, but they made that endorsement official in May of 2020, just 6 months before Election Day. This endorsement comes nearly a full year earlier in the campaign cycle. So despite not passing the infrastructure bill that would have actually, strengthened labor's hands, and despite his trademark, his signature interaction with organized labor being the intervening to stop a railroad strike 2 months before the East Palestine train derailment, which happened as a result of railroad workers' warnings going ignored for many, many years. These unions are coming out in force for Joe Biden for 2024. This speaks to a lot of the concerns that Workers Strike Back has articulated. Shama Sawant talking about the sort of professional union business class not representing the will of their members or even the interests of their members, right? Let's stop letting the rank and file off easy here, right? I mean, unions are not what they were on the ground at the rank and file. And a lot of that has to do with the influence of the management, right? A fish rots from the head down, right? Once a culture becomes corrupted, everything underneath it becomes corrupted as well. It goes all the way down. And a lot of these unions are simple arms of the DNC now. That's what Russell was saying off the air. I think that's absolutely true. But let's take a look at some of these union endorsement announcements here. So we'll just go through Twitter. I have these bookmarked. Here's the SEIU. 4 more years? Yes, President Biden has created 13 million American jobs in 2+ years, investing trillions in our infrastructure, protected our pensions, and strengthened workers' rights. Unions for all.
Hang on. You mean there were job gains coming out of an apocalyptic pandemic? Right. Holy shit, this guy's good.
Well, that's what I mean. A lot of these talking points are not even necessarily pro-labor talking points, as we'll get to soon. This one hurt a lot because the National Nurses Union tends to be a more progressive union. Nurses are proud to endorse Joe Biden and Kamala Harris for a second term. Their track record of support for union workers and efforts to protect nurses have shown that they have our backs. We are happy to have their backs in the 2024 presidential race, too. This one really stung. They cited here the Biden administration's support for union workers. Nurses note that on day one of his presidency, Biden ousted right-wing corporate-backed NLRB General Counsel Peter Robb, and has since appointed new NLRB officials who support the right of workers to organize unions. This is really the only thing that they have, that he got rid of the sort of pro-management NLRB general counsel and replaced him. Of course, any Democrat probably would have done that. Certainly, if Biden did it, you can certainly bet that any Democrat would have done that. Why that's a unique win for him is pretty evident based on the fact that there aren't many other unique wins for him. The Biden administration has also supported passage of the PRO Act. Notice they have not passed the PRO Act. They've supported passage of the PRO Act.
Well, the Democrats are always for good things and against bad things.
Right.
As long as they don't have to actually pass them.
Right. Exactly. Go ahead.
This, I don't know what the fuck they're talking about, because everyone that I speak to in the medical industry, including Tusker, says the whole system is falling apart. They've got a mass shortage of nurses, of staff, of support. So why are they so excited about what they've done? What have they done to support and recruit nurses? Didn't COVID expose how flimsy this entire system is? I mean, they don't mention anything here that they've done to improve that. Remember when I talked to in that industry, it's only gotten worse because COVID burned out so many people. They just left the industry.
Yeah. And as the second thing listed here, on his second day in office, Biden issued an executive order on protecting workers from COVID-19, thanks to NNU's advocacy that was followed by enactment of the Occupational Safety and Health Administration, OSHA, and ETS for healthcare workers, which mandated employers give nurses and healthcare workers optimal PPE, among other provisions. Once again, the issue at the beginning was that we didn't have PPE for anybody. Right. That's one of the reasons why there was a lot of schmishim for schmish. Yeah, I won't. We've already taken too many chances for 1 week having Jimmy on the show, but that's why there was a lot of fudging of the information around that, because we didn't have it. So as that became more readily available, of course, the hospitals were going to get it. The Biden administration's track record of getting Congress to pass critical legislation, including the American Rescue Plan, the Inflation Reduction Act, and the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law. So this is what I mean. This is what we mean when we say these unions have become corrupted to the point where they are PR firms for the Democratic Party. The Inflation Reduction Act was a joke bill. The Bipartisan Infrastructure Law was a joke bill. These were bills that any president could have gotten passed. The Bipartisan Infrastructure Law was never in question. That would have passed under Trump. It would have passed under Biden. It would have passed under anybody, right? That was the given. The point was to get Build Back Better through, because that would have been transformative in several ways. That did not get through. And the other point here that we should make is that there is, according to Kyle Kulinski and Crystal Ball and some of the writers at Jacobin, there is a Democratic primary going on, right? So don't you think some of these unions could have maybe taken a look at RFK or Marianne Williamson? Oh, no, because here in reality, what did we tell you from day one? They are the organizations that pull weight within the Democratic Party are going to act as though there is no primary. That's why they're making these endorsements this early. They're going to be ignored. They are not going to make a splash. This is exactly what we told you would happen, right?
Well, and what's funny has been watching how they've reacted to Cornel West jumping in, because that was one of those things where they were all like, let me at him, and everyone let go. They said, we should stay with Marianne. Okay, well, if he were running Green Party, if he were, well, okay, well, if in the general, sure.
In the general, sure, but we're going to stick with Marianne for now. Why?
Right.
She can't even get a hearing. The unions are not paying her any mind at all. You can't win. This is the problem with Democratic Party politics. Not only is the DNC a giant blob of its own, right, institutionally speaking, you have countless other institutions that pull tremendous weight within the Democratic Party. The American Federation of Teachers, huge. Planned Parenthood, not a union, but a not-for-profit, huge. In 2016, they didn't even call a member vote. They endorsed Hillary without even letting the members vote, right? You can't go up against these institutions within the Democratic Party. That's part of why Shama formed Workers Strike Back, to have a movement of workers that is not dependent on the goodwill or good judgment of union leaders like Randy Weingarten, who is the grand finale of this little segment we're doing, because we're going to watch her pitch for Biden-Harris in just a moment. But before we get to that, we have a couple more of these that we have to get through. So let's go back to the screen here. The AFSCME, I don't even know what the hell they are, public workers. It's undeniable. Joe Biden is the most pro-union president of any of our lifetimes. He's a union man, and he's not afraid to admit it. Now, listen, if that's true, then that is really an indictment of the... I mean, talk about a leper with the most fingers contest, right? I mean, he may be the most pro-labor president of my lifetime, because when you think, okay, who's been in my lifetime? What, Reagan, Bush, Clinton... Reagan, Bush, Clinton, Obama.
I mean,
Bush,
Carter.
Trump,
Carter was the one who started to create the New Democrats. Right. But it's one of those things where you look at Richard Nixon, the arch conservative of his day, and he was to the left of most Democrats today. So saying Jimmy Carter shifted to the right in the context that he shifted to the right, a pre-Reagan context, is way to the left of Bernie Sanders. So, right. Jimmy Carter was still that New Deal Democratic Party where you served the unions. You relied very heavily on the unions for donations, for door knocking. The Democratic Party was completely wed to the unions. Once Reagan fired the air traffic controllers and, once Bill Clinton got in, then you no longer have a pro-union president. So basically up until 1980, any Democrat was pro-labor. You couldn't be a Democrat and not be pro-labor. It was the entire basis of the party.
Right.
They hadn't sold out to Wall Street yet, so they weren't getting that Wall Street money. They were completely dependent on labor to knock on doors and register voters.
Right. By the way, Russell, I saw your text. Just send me that link, because I forgot to pull it up. So if you have that link, send it while we're watching Weingarten here. All right. So here is the finale of this segment here. Randy Weingarten, again, the Ukraine emoji people always look and sound the worst. Like, always. I mean, I would like to see a scientific study of bad takes online and correlate that to who has a Ukraine flag in their profile. Randy Weingarten, the Biden-Harris administration is proudly pro-worker, pro-public education, and pro-democracy. Here's Randy Weingarten playing politician here, trying to gin up support for Biden-Harris. This is quite pathetic. She should stay out of politics, I think. But here she is doing her best.
President Joe Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris really care about people. They get the importance of workers having a voice and students having real opportunity. They are unabashedly pro-labor and pro-public education. I'm Randy Weingarten. And the 1.7 million members of the AFT, representing public school teachers and school staff, higher education.
Like, who thought this
faculty,
was a good
campus
idea?
staff,
That's what I
nurses
never
and
understand
healthcare
about things like
professionals
this.
and public employees
She's fucking
across
awful.
the country. All of us are proud.
She looks like
to
she's doing
support
like
President
fake
Joe
sign
Biden
language.
and Vice President
You know,
Kamala Harris.
like she's trying to
Democratic
sign, but she doesn't know how to sign with the ooh.
She just got the she got the gig to sign at the Tonys, but they didn't look into whether she actually knew how.
Right, just like, oh shit, I don't know how to do this. Yeah, exactly.
In 2024.
I'm Connie, and I'm an OR tech.
I'm Crystal, a paraprofessional from Chicago Public Schools.
I'm Scott. I'm a community college librarian in Lancaster, California.
I'm Michelle. I work at the Montana Department of Transportation.
I'm Erica Bray, Administrative Assistant for Detroit Public Schools.
My name is Carmen, and I am a proud New York City middle school social studies teacher, and I support Joe Biden.
And this is why it's so hard for me to find a date.
Joe Biden got the first major infrastructure
This town
bill
is
passed
full of
in
those
decades.
fucking people.
It's going to build roads, bridges, water and energy infrastructure, broadband, and more.
I'm voting for Joe Biden because he's the most labor-friendly president that I can remember.
Because I had a terrible accident and a severe head injury.
Supporting women's reproductive health.
I don't remember
particularly
anything
after
beyond last
the
week.
Dobbs decision.
I see how President Biden's Medicaid expansion has worked wonders for the patients I help here. in my
Reproductive health,
I'm voting for
pro-democracy,
Joe Biden
Medicaid
because of
expansion,
the public service loan forgiveness,
service loan
the African
forgiveness.
American community support, and I want
Not a lot
him to
of
finish the job that
labor-based
I'm
issues.
voting for Biden because he fights for what
that
our
they're citing
schools
here.
and communities need.
Let's help Joe and Kamala finish the job of standing up for what families need.
I like the bottom
Making
up,
government
middle
work
out.
for all Americans and building our economy from the bottom up and the middle out so everyone.
And somebody directed that.
Yeah. All right.
You know,
now,
we're
next time-
theater guys,
next
so
time
we see
need
something.
more. We need more.
Could you do that like Charlton Heston parting the sea, that kind of thing? No, we're both theater guys, so we watch something like that, and you know that's a director. Like a director told her to do that. And you just say, God. I mean, I don't blame the director because look what he had to work with. That had to have been the most torturous gig you could imagine to try to direct this fucking reptile to do these gestures and try to make it organic.
Yeah, but I mean, just really awful. I mean, just really pathetic that they would fall in line this early. And look, forgetting about, I don't give a shit about they picking Marianne Williamson. I mean, they're not going to do that. You'd at least think maybe wait and bargain a bit. Maybe actually like do the bidding of your workers, of your members, to try and get some.
If they did the bidding
promises
of the workers,
out of Joe Biden,
they'd support Trump.
What's
I mean,
yeah, a lot of them.
I mean,
In
when
a
you're
lot of
talking about the industrial unions, definitely.
Oh, sure, the UPS people. That wouldn't surprise me at all. I worked at a union warehouse for UPS during the heat of the pandemic, during that holiday season. And the only reason I left is because they started playing games with me about whether or not they were actually going to let me into the union. They're like, they told me like 36 days into my job that the books closed on the union in October. So now we're going to have to wait and see after the holidays, if you get in, which is code for we're going to work you to death for a month in, these brutal conditions and then probably tell you thanks, but no thanks, get lost. So I just left and I drove. Because I made more money driving anyway. I just wanted to do it because the UPS union is actually a very good union. I mean, great health benefits, good advancement opportunities. Like they actually do pay workers quite well. UPS is a job that a lot of drivers want. Now, actually, UPS workers are talking about going on strike to get more. And they're a very, very powerful union. So obviously, best of luck there. But as I understood, when I was working for them, the rank and file didn't really have issues with pay or incentives or anything like that. This was 3 years ago, so things are probably different now, obviously, since they're talking about going on strike. But that's why I left. But yeah, no, man, the rank and file in that warehouse, yeah, it was Trumpville, and it was very, very diverse. It was a very, very diverse warehouse. The town I grew up in was majority minority, third black, third brown, third white, and that was the representation in the warehouse. And from what I can gather, I mean, they didn't talk politics much, but when they did, they didn't sound like Randy Weingarten. I can tell you that. Not much of this and this going on.
Well, this is so much to me the dividing line politically. Most of the people who have a college education, not all. I'm an example. Most of the people who have a college education, they don't know working class people. They just don't. Because generally, it's not the college education, it's the background you probably came from if you got one. Not in all cases. Again, I'm an example. You don't have to tell me not everybody. I'm the not everybody. But because I'm the not everybody, I saw who I went to college with. And none of them came from where I did. I'm not saying I'm the old. Actually, I shouldn't say that. There were a lot of black students who came from similar backgrounds to what I did economically. But the white students, no. So that's, I've kind of been, almost trolling Katie because Katie Halper, because we had an exchange with her. And, I jumped into the thread, which drove her off, saying, Katie, do you realize how it looks to working people when you all line up behind a figure as ridiculous as Marianne Williamson? And, 2 days later, she drops that Richard Wolff, listen, anybody has any connect with him, to kind of, use a favorite phrase of Cornel West, he's got to get off the crack pipe because he went on her show and praised Marianne Williamson. What the fuck? You're a communist? Like, what the fuck was that? What was that? Like, I don't even get that. I'm not, encyclopedic on his interviews, but what the fuck was that about? He went
that's a surprising take, I would say.
So then, Katie's tweeting that out. And honestly, that is the PMC mentality. I don't think they're ill-intentioned. I don't think she is anyway. I don't think Katie is ill-intentioned. I think they're clueless. I think their heads are so far up their rich asses that they just don't see this as fucking absurd. This is like high school, right? It's their friend running for class president, and they honestly believe that their friend should be class president. So they're getting behind their friend. They don't understand what that looks like, or some of them don't, to everybody else. Everyone who's not a member of that class, which is most people.
Indeed. All right, we're going to move right on. We got Pasta and Cornel West coming up in just a second, but let's go to some super chats first since we fell a little bit behind. Apologies, folks. Ruthless Criticism, thanks for the $5. Does the article end with calling Orcas right wing? I didn't actually read it. No, it ended the same way they attacked the Bernie bros, although we got called right wing a lot. But they said, no, look, you're right. You just shouldn't be so nasty about it, right? Yeah, we should raise the minimum wage. Yeah, it sucks you don't have health care, but you don't have to be mean about it, right? You shouldn't be mean to rich people about it, right? That was the tone.
They work very hard for what they have.
Right. They work very hard for what they have. They're not your enemy. They're not your enemy. The neo-fascists
that's divisive.
Are the enemy. Right, that's divisive.
Very divisive rhetoric.
Considering we captured orcas and paraded them in aquariums for decades, I'd say they're just evening the scales. Well, that was what that was cited in the article, Axel. Thank you very much for the donation. Pardon me. Sandy, the Orca Rebellion may be our best chance for reuniting the left. Perhaps. I think this is a fairly straightforward case. I think broadly speaking,
White Gladys, finally a candidate we can all get behind.
White Gladys, yeah, maybe we should write in White Gladys. If Cornel drops out for any reason, we should all write in White Gladys.
We're gonna have to make it just Gladys, though.
Yeah, that's true.
Bad optics.
What was the write-in that everybody got behind? That 2016, I think it was Harambe, right? There was the Harambe for president. Who was the gorilla, right? The gorilla in the zoo that got killed.
I missed that.
Yeah. So the White Gladys could be the Harambe of 2024. Keeper of tracking. Thanks to the 550. That coverage, of the Mermaid Parade definitely boosts your ESG and DEI scores. Yes, that's not a bad idea. It's a good point. I'm glad you raised that.
Finally, we can call up BlackRock and Vanguard to get in on the ground floor here.
Jockey for some position
play
within
them
those
off
organizations.
each other, yeah.
Exactly. John Locke with the super sticker. Thank you for the $20, my friend. We appreciate that very much. That's very kind of you. I like this. Mastario, hey, why don't you cover insert drama topic here, or are you right wing?
Thank you.
Thank you. That makes the point pretty well.
You have a keen sense of humor. That was very good.
Yes, that makes the point pretty well. Appreciate it. Wow, we got a lot of these tonight. Thank you guys very much for the generous donations. These really do help a great deal. What also helps a great deal is if you like this stream. I don't know where we're at in terms of likes. And if you hit that subscribe button, we have passed our 10,000 subscriber mark, so we're very happy about that. We're at 10,391. Can we get to 10,400 so you guys can all see the change in front of your eyes? It can click from 10.3 to 10.4. Why don't some of you guys hit that subscribe button if you have not already?
Step right up and see these circumcised wonders perform feats of political acumen rarely seen on this continent, folks.
There you go. They sounded good. That sounded like one of those old-time announcers. Black Freud, thanks for the $5. Black Freud's a member. Thank you, Black Freud. Having moved to Southern California 2 years ago, it's great to hear New York humor and sensibilities again. Well, I could understand that. And thank you. Glad you appreciate it. Thanks, comrade. Used Jews got great news. Yeah, that's good. Yeah, I like that. Used Jews got great news. I like that. That should be our tagline. Tyler Dukacek, thanks for letting us start late and watch twice. What do you mean? You mean, I'm not sure what you mean by that. Best way to support, Substack or Patreon. We're really not supposed to play favorites. That would be doing the bidding of one against the other. So, I would say it's up to you, man. Check them both out and see what you like better. Just go to patreon.com/DueDissidence, or you can go to DueDissidence.substack.com. Does not matter to us, but thank you very much for your interest. We appreciate the support. I'm sure Patreon or Substack wouldn't appreciate us directing people to the other platforms. So take your pick. Perks are the same, by the way, on Patreon and Substack, just so you guys know. Franklin, aren't Dems worried that keeping up with their blank at Walgreens will depopulate their constituency? Well, I appreciate you using the underscore there. I appreciate that. And, like I said, we took enough chances with Jimmy for 1 week, and we got pasta coming up next week. So we're gonna lay low. The feds are everywhere now. The feds are all over that shit now. We do have Craig Pasta Jardula coming up a week from Thursday. So we have our guest tour continues, folks. We have Kit Cabello coming up on Thursday the 22nd. Then we have Pasta on the 29th. And then it's not 100% confirmed yet, but tentatively it looks pretty good that July 5th, that's going to be our first Wednesday night show. Because in July, folks, remember that we will no longer be doing Thursday streams starting July. Starting in July, we're going to do 3 streams a week, Sunday night, Wednesday night, and Friday morning. And it looks like we are going to have Nick and CJ from RBN join us for our inaugural Wednesday night stream. That'll be July 5th. So got some good guests coming up. So stay tuned and please hit that subscribe button. Drunk Punk Marco, keep headbanging, Russell. There you go. Well, we're at 772 now. So we have passed the 666 threshold.
All right, I'm gonna tell you guys a fun fact. For a native New Yorker, you can kind of tell their age by the first concert they saw at Madison Square Garden. That's a rite of passage. My very first concert was Iron Maiden with Quiet Riot opening, and the ticket was $13.50, which I paid for in quarters.
Was $13.50? And when was that?
I literally was so young I went into my piggy bank.
What year was that?
83.
Okay, so you were 12 going on 13?
That was
13 going on 14.
Yeah. That was the Peace of Mind tour.
Okay. Interesting. All right. So we have a few more super chats we'll get to in a few moments. But let's do this segment. So this was a great one, folks. We were really looking forward to covering this. Yesterday, the Convo Couch became the hot seat. They should have renamed their show to Hot Seat for yesterday's episode because Cornel West sat down for an hour-long interview with our friend Pasta Jardula. And we're going to play a few clips from the interview and then react to them. I really encourage you guys to watch the full thing. It was really, really well done. We're going to touch on 3 specific sections here. I'll just tell you in advance what those 3 are. It was hard to choose which ones to do. We could have just sat and played the whole thing and covered the whole thing, but we can't keep you guys here till 2 a.m, so we're not going to do that. But I'm sure also we'll talk to Pasta about this more when he's on in about a week and a half. But the three sections we're going to cover are the section where Pasta asked Cornel about the use of the term neo-fascism to describe Trump and some of Trump's supporters, the confrontation over Dr. Fauci, and then the teaching of sexuality in schools at the very, very end. We think that's sort of a broad sampling. And so let's get to it right now. This is slightly sped up since there's a decent amount here. Overall, a little under 7 minutes of video. But here's Cornel West on the Convo Couch with Craig Pasta Jardula. Here we go.
Part where people have the real part where people have a problem with is that you call Brother Biden a neoliberal disaster when if you just put it on paper right now, and I'll tell you this right now, I think that sometimes people look at this and they're like, well, Dr. West is calling him a neoliberal disaster and calls Trump a neo-fascist when the corporate entities are way more invested in President Biden than they are Donald Trump, that he's kind of carrying a little water for Biden, and he's making that excuse that it was okay to vote for Biden over Donald Trump, which I think, was completely wrong. If you told me today, and I'm never going to vote for Biden, I'm never going to vote for Donald Trump, but if you put a gun to my head, Dr. West, and said I had to vote for either one of the two, I'm voting for Donald Trump. We're on the brink of World War III here now.
Okay, I'm going to stop it for a second. I think it was really good that he made that point. I think it was really good that he just put that out there. Because, and this is a theme that we're going to touch on throughout this segment. Cornel West is a left-wing academic. Cornel West does not encounter many people in his circles who say what Pasta just said, which is, I'm not going to vote for either one, but gun to my head, I would vote for Donald Trump on the issue of Russia-Ukraine, which is really the issue of World War III all by itself. I think was really good of him to put his cards on the table there. And to Cornel's credit, notice how he nods along and says, yep, I get it. If you said that to someone running as a Democrat, they would shut you down immediately. They might even leave the interview. They might not even finish, right? But at the very least, they would bark over you if you said that.
I will say it was very interesting watching Pasta. I haven't seen a lot of his stuff. That
Russell's more of a side salad guy, but he appreciates.
I'm staying off the carbs. I'm telling you, I put on weight over the winter. I had to stop working out for a while. That he don't give a fuck, man. He don't give a fuck. It's interesting because a lot of us in this space, look, we're not demonetized. We're not where he is. He's already there. And I'm not saying he doesn't have some limitations, I guess, on his YouTube when he's doing his YouTube channel. But this was on Rockfin. This is a real activist perspective he brought to it. And he left the diplomacy at home. Not that he was nasty or mean or
no, he was the opposite. I thought it was very, very professionally done.
Especially because at the beginning you could see he expressed admiration for Cornel West that you could tell was sincere. And so that right there put everything in a context that he does admire this man. But hey, man, he's out there doing the work for real. He has these really strong convictions. And I think a lot of people in this space would not have asked him some of this, not this way, not that directly. And as you point out, not with that framing to straight out be like, oh yeah, well, if you held a gun to my head, I would vote for Trump. Because let's face it, I would say most of us in our section of this space would probably say the same thing, but we don't say it all that much.
Right, of course.
Right? He just can't, boom. Because you're gonna get shit for even occupying the lane that we occupy. You got the people. You say something like that, they shit themselves. Right,
exactly.
Which always makes you feel if you do if you have the kind of act we have, you just want to say to them, and we call it the aristocrats.
Yeah, right.
What did you think you were watching? Was that not clear? But he just went there, man, with Cornel West. I don't think a lot of people would do that. So hats off to him, man. This was a ballsy interview.
Yeah, it was very well done.
You see the hypocrisy there, and can you maybe square that circle right there and kind of give us a little insight to this whole, like, Biden gets this treatment, but Trump gets that treatment?
Yeah, I mean, one is that we could have been on the brink of World War III with Trump too. Anybody who's head of a militaristic and aggressive.
Okay, but the thing is, we weren't on the brink of World War III with Trump. I mean, yeah, you could be on the brink of World War III with anybody in theory.
That's theoretical.
I could look like an elephant if I had big ears and a trunk. You know what I mean? And look, Trump gave us a couple of scares, right, with the Soleimani assassination and the, dick waving contest with Kim Jong-un with my button is bigger than yours. I'm not saying he didn't give us a couple scares, but it's pretty clear that Trump, and like I've made this point in the past, I think part of being, an outer borough New York real estate guy is knowing how far you can push the guy on the other side without blowing the deal, right? Knowing how far you can take it before they get up and walk away, the metaphor being before actual violence breaks out. And with Biden, there doesn't seem to be any real concern about that. There doesn't even seem to be any real control over that. It has now come out, I think the Washington Post printed this afternoon, or maybe it was yesterday, that the U.S. Warned Ukraine against blowing up the Nord Stream. And they just said, go get your fucking shine box. They did it anyway. So with Biden, there doesn't seem to be the will or the competency to keep a lid on these things. And we're only getting closer and closer to a hot World War III. I have a feeling when the history is written, this will be described as World War III in 100 years anyway, if it stays as it is. Because we're treating Ukraine as a NATO country now. We're just not calling them a NATO country because then we'll have no choice but to escalate immediately and drastically. But we're giving them weapons. I mean, we're giving them what they need to fight the war. We're treating them as an ally. So what the hell is the difference? So the point that, well, this could have happened under Trump, I'm sorry. That I award that 0 points.
Well, that's something else. Are you
happy, Courtney? Courtney in the audience. Are you happy? Are you happy? Have I satisfied you?
She sent me a book. I appreciate it. And Pasta really knows his shit. Like when the Ukraine war first broke out, I did some research on the Maidan coup, and I did some research on the Donbass. But honestly, given that we're in this space, not as much as I could or should. And I definitely felt that watching this interview. Like, yo, man, Pasta's on his shit. He fucking knows. He knows this inside and out, backward and forward. And I've read enough into it that I know he's not pulling this out of his ass. Like, those are legitimate points that he's making. It's just, again, I don't know anybody who is informed enough on it or ballsy enough to say this to Cornel West, like straight out.
Empire can lead the world toward war. It could have been with North Korea. I mean, there's all kinds of different possibilities in that regard. So that if we use solely the possibility of nuclear holocaust, nuclear exchange, the head of any empire, when it comes to the most powerful empire in the history of the world, the United States, it could be Trump or Biden in that regard. No, I think part of the difference here is the difference between a catastrophe and a disaster is that I think you would have to acknowledge that when it comes to all
right, we'll let him finish in a second. I don't love this semantical nitpicking over him going now into parsing the difference between a catastrophe and a disaster. And, to Pasta's point, this does sound like water carrying for the Democrats. If you're running as a third party, your point has to be very simple, which is that both options are unacceptable. Unacceptable. Now, he eventually does get there, to his credit. But he takes the long way there. The way Jill Stein put it in 2016 was very, very good. She said, look, if I wake up November 9th and Trump has won, I'm going to be pretty frightened. But she said, if I wake up November 9th and the Democrats win, I'm also going to be very frightened. Like, that's how you say it. These two parties are both beyond the pale. And you have to keep the messaging there. When you start saying, well, a disaster is not as bad as a catastrophe, or catastrophe is not as bad as a disaster, and here's what I mean by that, that really muddies things a bit. So, I thought this was too long and too meandering an answer, but he does eventually get to his points. Should I play it, or do you have anything to add?
I feel like this kind of ties together in a way with the Cop City thing. I mean, talking about the two parties. You know what I'm really worried about, and I kind of intimated it a little bit when we were interviewing Jimmy, and I was asking him if he's afraid they're going to shut us all down as they become increasingly under threat from the population. The fear for me, and if we do get to talk to Dr. West, I think I'll bring this up, is it feels like the more restive the population gets, the less the entire system feels a need to pretend it is other than what it is. You see, back during the Stonewall riots, I feel like they still felt like they had to pretend that this was a democracy. They had to pretend that there was freedom. And I feel like increasingly they're willing to throw the mask off and just govern through open censorship, suppression, and hostility. So that's really at the core of this question to me. Like, when you're supporting Democrats, you're just supporting another flavor of fascism. You really are. And in some ways, it's a more insidious form of fascism because they're for good things and against bad things, right?
Yeah, I mean, look, when it comes to fascism, if you look at the Umberto Eco, 14 points of fascism, Donald Trump satisfies a lot of them. But Joe Biden satisfies quite a lot of them, too.
Right.
You may say Trump satisfies more, but when you look at the really just insidious relationship now between the government and major financial and corporate centers to enforce the will of the government, mainly in terms of censorship, but all kinds of other incentivizing, right? That could really be described equally well as a fascistic dynamic.
Of course it is.
And so I think, like, when we had Jimmy on the show on Thursday, he said, you shouldn't call Trump a fascist. And then he put the caveat in there, which I thought was smart. He says, unless you're going to call Biden a fascist also. Like, I don't actually have a problem with saying both of them are fascist. Like, I think that's just telling the truth.
Sure.
Right. But I don't think you should be selective, because when Cornel West says, as he said on Bill Maher, and he even put that clip, I believe, in his announcement campaign video, well, you have neo-fascism on the one hand and then milquetoast neoliberalism on the other hand. Well, that makes the Democrats sound better, because if you take a poll of 1,000 people and say, which would you rather live under, a sort of militant neo-fascism or a milquetoast neoliberalism, they're going to pick milquetoast. I mean, it says right in there, milquetoast.
Right.
Milquetoast is fairly benign, right?
It's becoming quite a bit more muscular.
Right.
That's it.
Exactly. This is not benign. We're not in a benign situation.
This is not your grandfather's shit livery.
Right. Exactly. All right, here we go.
Gestures toward rights and liberties, gestures toward trade union activities, gestures toward trying to deal with voting rights and trying to deal with gerrymandered voting patterns. You see, that the disastrous Democratic Party, rhetorically, symbolically, but at times even concretely, are able to move in the direction toward those black voters and toward those trade unionists and so forth than was Trump.
All right. So what he's saying there is that Trump's hostile gestures on immigration, on labor, on those issues that he's talking about, make him more of a fascist. And look, to Cornel's point, gestures are part of what makes fascists fascists. Like, gestures are not insignificant. Part of what makes a fascist is their sort of demagogic tone towards outgroups or minority groups, or even in the 14 points, I won't call them sexual deviants, because I don't think that's a nice way to put it. I don't think it's the right way to put it. But they enforce, sexual or even gender norms, right? In a way that, yes, Trump does more aggressively. So those gestures do account for something, but they don't account for everything.
Well,
and
but
when you weigh that
number...
against the actions that we're talking about here, the actions of the alliance of corporate and state power. That, as Pasta put in his question, that right now is the fascist threat. I brought that up in our conversation with Jordan also. The fascist threat right now is security interests merging with corporate interests, merging with state interests. That's the real fascism now. The gestures, the gestures count for something, granted, but that's secondary now. It has to be in any serious analysis of things.
Yeah, well, I mean, the only thing that gives me hope is point number 12 in the 14 points is spectacular fashion sense, and neither one of them has that.
Exactly. Yeah, Biden puts it well. Demagoguery matters less than World War III. I agree. That's exactly my point. It's not that it counts for nothing, but you can't really put those side by side in the way that he's trying to here. All right, here we go.
What I mean by, see, the problem is that both of these parties have such a vicious dimension of them that they do look so similar. They look similar. Take to the brothers right now in Jenkins and Parker in Mississippi. The party looks similar. Looks similar on the West Bank. In the Middle East, parties look similar.
Have to go.
If you're arguing that Trump is better than Biden across the board, given his attempts to reshape government, viciously attack.
But that's not what he's arguing. He's not arguing Trump is better than Biden across the board. He's saying, based on the prioritization of the existential issue of our time, I would pull the lever for Trump before Biden because Trump is better on that issue.
Right.
That's all he's saying. He's not making an across-the-board evaluation.
World War III is his red line.
Right. That's the red line. That's the issue that trumps everything, as it should be. I agree with Pasta, by the way. He has the balls to say it. I'll have the balls to say it. Gun to my head, I'd probably vote for Trump, too, because of this issue alone. It's an existential issue. Okay? So there you go, Pasta. Solidarity.
As things stand, I'll be voting for Dr. West, or I'll be writing in Dave Chappelle.
Yeah. I thought it was, if he can go out on a limb, so can we. Solidarity with Pasta. We are the garlic bread and escarole on the side.
we're the gabagool, so to speak.
The gabagool over here.
Immigrants, viciously attack black folk, viciously attack progressives like yourself and myself as leftists, always Marxists and communists and so forth. Then that's a different kind of argument. I mean, I think the important thing is to build an alternative to both.
Okay, so there you go. So again, he lands on build the alternative to both. In the future, cut that middle part. Cut all that shit. Because the point is, when you're running as a third party, you have to condemn both parties. You have to make both parties out of bounds. Once you start equivocating and tell the people, well, the Democrats are better, well, that gives people an excuse to just vote for the Democrat, right? And same thing on the right. If you're a libertarian, you don't talk up the Republicans over the Democrats, right? Because that gives your people an excuse that, all right, whatever, I'll vote red. You don't want that. You're trying to build alternative power. And so you have to be very, very clear on that.
And by the way, we're going to do this segment, but I have noticed a lot of people in our feeds and in the comments have been wondering about what exactly our position is on Cornel West and why, and the Green Party. So we will get into that at the end of this segment.
Sure. I mean, I think we're kind of getting a little bit into it as we go, but we'll devote some time to it at the end. All right. So part two, this is when Pasta brings up Dr. Fauci. So for the sake of not playing too much of their video, Pasta showed a clip of Cornel West praising Fauci. I believe that was in fall of 2020, before the presidential election. So it must have been September or October. And then he asked them to explain if his position on Fauci has changed since then, or does he regret having praised him at the time? That's the sort of setup. Here's the answer. Oops, I'm sorry.
Do you regret these comments, and do you regret kind of uplifting Dr. Fauci in this situation? Because people have said to me, they're like, you should ask Dr. West. It seems like there's more than one crack pipe going around when he could say these things about Dr. Fauci when he's had a history tied to the pharmaceutical.
Ballsy, bringing up that crack pipeline, throwing it back at him. Pasta, bringing the arrabbiata sauce there,
Where's he from? Is he from New York?
He's from Long Island.
Yeah, he's got the accent.
Yeah, he told us that when we were on his show. He said he's a Long Island guy. Yeah, definitely. It's weird. When you grow up in New York, you associate Long Island with like the opposite politics of pastas. It's very rare to hear that accent expressing these kinds of views, right? Like Long Island's very like Blue Lives Matter country.
Well,
you know?
that's like a throwback. You know?
Yeah, exactly.
I had a therapist once who said to me I was like a throwback to the old Lower East Side Jews.
Yeah, there you go.
Is a throwback to those old labor Democrats.
Exactly. All right, here he is.
Companies tied to gain of function, tied to Bill Gates.
Let me just play this again without our wisecrackery.
Situation, because people have said to me, they're like, you should ask Dr. West. It seems like there's more than one crack pipe going around when he can say these things about Dr. Fauci when he's had a history tied to the pharmaceutical companies, tied to gain of function, tied to Bill Gates and the Bill Gates Foundation. The financial gains of this towards the millionaire class, the billionaire class that came to the COVID-19 is off the charts. So do you want to make a comment about this and try to give us a little insight to what you were thinking and why you said these things?
Yeah, no, I appreciate you raising this question, though, brother, because what I said was not based on any extensive investigation. I always know that the pharmaceutical companies have a disproportionate role in shaping the public policy. That's what corporate power and what corporate wealth does, be it in one sphere as opposed to another. But I was basing it in part on what I was perceiving in what Brother Fauci was putting forward, given that knowledge of the pharmaceutical industry having that kind of influence. And it was in real time that we were in such crisis. We had to do something, and we needed to have someone who was trying to put forward a view or a set of policies that could push back the disease on the one hand and also try to envision an overcoming of it down the road on the other. I agree with you. I do not believe in censorship. I do not believe in suppressing dissenting voices. That includes dissenting doctors, that includes dissenting schools of medicine and what have you. In that particular moment, I probably should have been much, much, much more critical. So I would acknowledge that. There's no doubt about it.
All right. Now, Pasta goes on to show him the RFK book and said, well, everything that's in this book I knew before I read it. And just so you know, folks, I did find a version of that book from Barnes & Noble for $9.99, an ebook. So I will be reading it. I know I said I would read it sooner. It was $14.99 on Amazon. I'm sorry, you have your religious beliefs. I have mine. I cannot pay a Kennedy more than $10 for an ebook. I can't do it. Yeah, there you have it. Guilty as charged. I could not do it. I almost did it. I was like, all right, let me do it. I'm like, I can't. I'm sorry, I can't. I won't. I looked for it at the library, too. My local library has 2 copies of it, but they're rented out. They've been out forever. The people never brought them back. They probably died of COVID. That's why they couldn't return them. Joking. Can all take a joke here, right? All right. There go the RFK stands out the door, never coming back. Our subs just dropped by 1,000, right? Because I made that joke. Kidding, folks. Kidding. Have a sense of humor, okay? But no, I will read it. But anyway, the point of that was, look, on that answer, I thought Cornel gave a fair answer. I honestly did. Because part of the problem in 2020 was that there was no authority to counter anything that Fauci was saying or to take him down a notch, right? I mean, Pasta was doing it, but it's not reasonable to expect everybody to listen to the Convo Couch or podcasters and things like that. The person who created this vacuum of authority, this vacuum of information, was actually Donald Trump. And this is the thing that DeSantis is going after Trump for. And we'll see how successful it is. So far, it doesn't seem to be making a dent, but come debate time, maybe it will. DeSantis is basically saying, look, one of the reasons why Fauci looked so good for so long to so many people is because Trump just passed the ball to him and said, here, I don't want to deal with this thing. Here, you do it. And there was no messaging out of the White House. There was no messaging from the government except for what Fauci was saying. Well, and so I don't think it's reasonable, and don't confuse what I'm saying. I think it was an excellent question. I think it's very fair to ask, hey, knowing what we know now, do you regret having, blown all that smoke up his ass? Totally fair question on Pasta's part. But I don't think it is entirely fair to expect that, you know, an academic like Cornel West, who was not interested in running for office at the time, I don't think it's fair to hold those stances against him at the time, especially when he just admits to you right now, I think in retrospect, I should have been more skeptical. I thought that was a fair answer on his part. I really do.
Not only that, remember, we have a media that doesn't do its job. Quite the opposite. We have a media that functions as propagandists. This was actually something I mentioned when we were talking to Jordan, because he was talking about how stations like ours didn't cover a union action in Albany that he had said the media wasn't covering. And I said, well, if the media wasn't covering it, how would we have known about it? With Dr. Fauci, I mean, the media was not telling you anything. So unless you are aware of places to find that information, like people who are really on this subject, how would you know? You know, you really have to find ways to go around the media. So really, I don't blame him, and I don't blame anyone at that time who thought that. How would you know? How would you know? Like, I personally knew everything they were saying about Andrew Cuomo was bullshit because I live here. If I lived in Michigan, would I have known that? Would I have been as aware that the media narrative about him was false? Would I have been as aware of how much they were hyping up Giuliani and how hated he was in New York City? I wouldn't have known. I live here, so I knew the disconnect between the way the media covered Giuliani and how people felt about him in New York City. So how can you really hold him to account? If the media is not doing its job and informing the public, how would you know?
I mean, there was the Rand Paul exchange with the gain of function. That was really the extent to which he was ever challenged, and even that was pretty far into
much later. I'm talking about at the time that he made those statements.
Right.
I mean, come on, man. Unless you were on this beat, like Pasta clearly is, you wouldn't know any of this shit, man. I didn't know Fauci from a fucking hole in the ground before this happened.
Right. And there was a complete lack of information from any source that seemed authoritative at the time. And again, you can go back in retrospect and say, well, you should have read this, should have read that. I mean, those were very dire circumstances. And like I said, I thought his answer there was fair. And I saw Courtney post a chat that said, well, he called Fauci a humanitarian down the road. I think his follow-up question was, you don't think Fauci has any concern for well-being? He still obviously doesn't know that much about the topic. He posed that as a question to Pasta, and then Pasta held up the book. So he said, I'll read the book, and look, we'll go from there.
Right.
All right?
Right.
We'll go from there. One of the things that Cornel West has done is he has made himself available to these shows. Bernie never did that. Bernie never went on the fucking Convo Couch, right? Bernie never went on to RBN. Well, RBN didn't exist, but he didn't at the time. But he didn't go on independent. He went on the Kyle and Crystal show under the condition that Kyle not be there. So you know, he's making himself available and accountable
Crystal,
to these spaces.
I have watched this show. He is clearly a fucking moron.
Yeah, right. You're making a big mistake here.
You're making a big mistake. I'm telling you, you're going to wind up sleeping on my couch.
Exactly. So that was that answer. We'll see if there's a follow-up interview. I imagine there probably will be. I think he seems to be a man of his word. I think he'll come back if he says he will. And we'll see. And you know, I'll have to read the book, honestly. I'm ordering it. Like I said, I found a deal on it. So let's go with the last one. Okay, so this is an interesting one because this is something that Russell said he wanted to ask him if we ever had the honor of interviewing.
I mean, it's not exactly
Cornel West. Well, not exactly, but it's along those lines.
It's in the neighborhood.
It's in the neighborhood, right? All right, so here we go.
I was just going to ask you, when I talk to a lot of conservatives and I talk to a lot of people on the populist right, they don't say they're transphobic. The area that they are most concerned is that sexuality and gender is taught in schools. I mean, is it really, when you're going to approach a person who's a conservative or a populist right, they're going to say that. How are you going to handle that? Because I never thought that we should ever have sexuality taught in schools. So when it comes to transphobia, do they not have a point, at least a conversation to listen to when they're saying we just don't want our precious children being indoctrinated and programmed?
I mean, the thing is, you never, ever want any parent or any person to be indoctrinated and programmed by a teacher. I don't care if it's American history. I don't care if it's about sexuality. A teacher is not there to indoctrinate. That I think that, in fact, it's very important that people begin with a notion of acknowledging there's a variety of different peoples in the world, and they all should be respected with dignity. But that's almost about all you need to say. I don't think you need a whole lot more, because once you get into that, then all of a sudden you start taking positions on a whole host of issues that the teacher has very little expertise on and could easily misconstrue material or mislead students. So that in that sense, I'm not big on teaching sexuality. I'm big on teaching dignity of a variety of different persons, and there have always been, and there will always be a lot of different persons of different sexuality, different sexual fluidity. But that doesn't need to be the fundamental subject matter in a classroom. And there, I do resonate with some of the conservative fellow citizens, but we'd have to have a much longer discussion on that too. You can imagine.
Come back when Fiorella gets back, because she'd love to talk to you, and I'd love you guys to talk about what she experienced with Alex Saab and all that. Dr. West, thank you so much for coming on. If I don't catch up to you soon, I'll see you on the campaign trail.
Absolutely. God bless you and your family, man. You stay strong, though, Brother Pasta.
I will, Dr. Cornel West. Thank you for coming on. I'll speak to you soon.
All right. So, I thought that was a fairly good answer there as well. And, I chose to keep that last bit in because once again, just look at the difference between how a guy like Cornel West handles a tough interview and Marianne Williamson or even RFK.
That is an excellent point.
Yeah.
She would have been calling him a mansplainer 5 minutes in.
Right. Exactly. So anyway, I know this is a big issue for you. So what did you like? What did you think of that answer?
That's a promising answer. If we do interview him, I'll get more specific. I will ask about biological men and women's sports, and I will ask I will probably ask about inappropriate performances for children. And to be clear, that doesn't mean to me, look, if a drag queen wants to sit there in a ball gown and read Cinderella to kids, that's not my issue. If it's something that would not be acceptable if it were a heterosexual performer to do, slapping a rainbow flag on it doesn't suddenly make it appropriate. Now, those of you who are subscribers saw the video that I put together. This is not a phantasm of the right-wing mind. There are really performances going on in front of children that are pretty sick, in my opinion. Beyond that, of course, probably the biggest issue, medicalizing gender dysphoria. I don't believe there should be any kind of medication or surgery under the age of 18. Now, for me, we discussed this offline, so that's a good segue into. So what do we think about Cornel West? Because, a lot of people have a lot of very strong opinions about this and about the Green Party and so on. I've seen it. And we have a platform and people come and listen every week. We do owe it to people, I think, to explain our positions and to let them know what those positions are. I am tentatively for this candidacy for this reason. I don't believe you can enact any meaningful reform or change of the parties at this point. So that's a dead end. So at that point, if you are going to have any kind of an effort within the electoral system, it's going to have to be a third party effort. You're not talking about Cornel West winning. I don't think any reasonable person expects that. You're talking about getting over 5% so you can get matching funds and threaten the system, or barring that, do well enough that just like what the squad should have done, you don't need a lot of people to hold Congress hostage. You just need enough for them not to be able to pass legislation. Same thing with a third party. You don't need to get 51% to be a mortal threat to the two-party system and its agenda. You just need to be enough to be able to swing elections. So that, for me, is what it's about. And that's why I'm not going to get down into the weeds of what somebody said one time about a thing in an interview that you don't like. Whatever, man. Whatever. if you look at what he had to say in that interview, it seems like a pretty reasonable, open-minded person to me. Now, some people talk about problems with the Green Party, which honestly, I've never bothered to look into because it's always struck me as the fights are so big because the stakes are so small thing. Like, who cares? I don't give a shit what those fucking crazy bastards say amongst themselves. I don't care. Now I care because you're talking about making an investment in it. Now I'll look into it more. But I do feel like what the Green Party was in the past is not necessarily an indication of what it will be when you have probably more people coming in as part of the West campaign that belong to the Green Party total now by many multiples. That's going to, it'll be a completely different party. That having been said, it is worth knowing if there are institutional problems like that. I will take it. People are setting off fireworks.
Yeah, that's what it is. I saw somebody in the chat wondering what the hell that was. They thought the orcas were here because the one sounded like a it sounded like that.
Land shark.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'll look into it because you do want to know if there are going to be these kind of institutional obstacles left over from people who I'm sure are not going to want to let go of their power, their institutional power within the Green Party. And again, the fights are so big because the stakes are so small. So as people, even though it's obviously kind of suicidal for the party, I'm sure there are, these functionaries within the Green Party who are not going to like the idea of this big presence bringing in a bunch of people and overwhelming their power within this party, right? I'm sure that exists and it's worth looking into. It's just not, and people who bring it up, yeah, I mean, thank you. That is something we should be aware of. It doesn't mean it's not an effort worth getting invested in. That means it's something to be aware that has to be overcome. Now, in terms of Cornel West, he seems like a decent, open-minded person to me, and I haven't heard him say anything that's a deal breaker for me. In all honesty, if we do get to ask him those questions, for me, I could not support somebody who is not against medicalizing gender dysphoria in children and teenagers. Now, strategically, that's not really rational because I'm just talking about burning down the system. Nobody's talking about this guy becoming president. No matter what he believes, he's not actually going to be able to enact those beliefs into legislation or law. But for me, just like if you feel I wouldn't be able to get my heart into a campaign where the guy supports the war in Ukraine. I wouldn't be able to get my heart into a campaign where the guy supports the apartheid state of Israel in its current form. So I would not personally feel comfortable with somebody who had that position. Like I just could not. I'm very honest. Like I need to be able to believe in what I'm doing and what I'm saying, particularly when you're talking about something like a campaign where you're talking about phone banking or door knocking. And I have a platform here. So you're talking about telling people, yeah, get behind this. I have to believe in it in my heart. I have to really believe in it. And yes, there is an element of this for me that is just cold strategic calculation. At the same time, are there no positions he could take that would make me like, I just can't in all good conscience tell people to vote for this? Yes, there are. And so far, Pasta did kind of breach that territory. And I liked what he had to say. And let me just make one thing clear, because I saw some of this in the chat. I think some people have interpreted the fact that I feel strongly about the women's sports subject or surgery and medical treatment for minors as being anti-trans in a way that they like. They want to support that. I'm not anti-trans. I'm not anti-anybody. I think everybody should have equal rights, equal protection under the law. Everyone should be treated with respect and with dignity. That's why when we did our big episode on this, we invited on Buck Angel, a trans person, to talk about it and also to make the point this is not all trans people who support this. I don't even personally think it's most. I think it's hard to figure that out to find out. I don't think anybody's really doing that kind of research, partly because they don't want the answer. That's not about being against trans people. That's about being against an agenda that is being pushed, I think, by venture capital, academia, and groups that make their money off creating social conflict. I don't believe that's an organic movement that is organically arising, either in the trans community, the gay community, the community in general. I think it's something that's being ginned up and imposed by people with their own agenda. So, some people saw the Coney Island thing and saw gay people. I don't know what you thought this channel was, man. It's not that. It's not that. It's not about being against people. It's about being for everybody.
Well, I'll tell you, Cornel West could cut my dick off and I'd still vote for him. That's what I call that. That's how much of a stan I am. But, yeah. No, I mean, look, to what you said. I mean, look, yes. Look, to me, the red line is Ukraine. It's disband NATO. He is on the right side of that issue. And, for me, that issue, as I attempted, stupidly, I suppose, to communicate to Jordan Sheridan, that issue is a proxy for a larger struggle between capitalism and its first real formidable ideological competitor in decades. And so, if you're talking about supporting a candidate like a Cornel West or, any third-party candidate, if you're more of the, libertarian bent, whatever, all are welcome here. It's a viewpoint diverse audience, and we're very, very happy about that. Even if it's RFK, like if RFK were running as an independent and you wanted to support him and you can make the case, fine. For me, the Israel-Palestine issue is an issue where I would just very easily point to Cornel West, game over, right? But when you talk about a candidate like Cornel West or a candidate around whom you're trying to not simply build a movement in the short term, but really establish the ideological framework for whatever movement you're going to try to build off of this particular candidacy, you have to have certain standards for, okay, what are the values of the movement that we're trying to build? And to me, if you're either indifferent on Russia-Ukraine or if you're on the wrong side of Russia-Ukraine, that demonstrates a lack of seriousness about what movement you're trying to create and whether that will be at all worthwhile. So to me, he's already sort of passed my litmus test to the point where I would be shocked if I did not go into a voting booth on November 5th, 2024 and pull the lever for Cornel West. That is almost certain to happen in my case. He would have to really step in it to fuck that up at this point. Now, it's a different question. Should people invest in it, right? Should people put time in and money in? Should they donate? Should they phone bank? Should they volunteer? That's a question that we'll have to see, how things play out in the coming months. Because, as Nick pointed out to Marianne, working people don't have infinite time and resources, right? Just because we like Cornel West, just because I will almost certainly be voting for Cornel West, that doesn't mean I can advocate for any significant investment in his campaign at this point. I think it shows tremendous promise. I'm really excited that he's running. Like I said, I have great, great admiration and respect for him. And ultimately, the question comes down to, on November 5th, 2024, do you want to cause disruption and chaos and panic within the system, or do you not? Right? So if not Cornel West, who? Then maybe you have an answer for that, and that's fine. If your answer is someone else, that's cool. If you don't think electoral politics is worth engaging in at all because you think it's totally hopeless and you want to put your resources somewhere else, that's cool too. But to me, the short-term goal as it pertains to this 2024 race is to make Democrats panic. You have to make them panic because right now they're not panicking. Look at the unions lined up. We just did a segment earlier. 17 labor unions, right? The backbone of the movement. What do we say? 2021, there was just all this noise about, oh, we have the labor movement's back, baby. It's back. Look at all these labor actions. 17 of them, just boom, boom, boom. Biden, 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 Biden. The Democrats are not panicking now. The Democrats are sitting pretty, doing fuck all for working people, and counting on the fact that the Republicans will probably make enough fuck ups of their own to put them back in power. That's what they're doing. And if you're satisfied with that dynamic, then by all means, pick apart what Cornel West said about Dr. Fauci 3 years ago. All right? But if you're more interested in making Democrats panic and causing disruption and chaos within the system, then I think at this point, going out and voting for Cornel West in November of next year is a pretty good way to go about doing that. And that's why I'm almost certain to do that.
We are going to make T-shirts with Cornel's face with the Heath Ledger makeup saying, burn down Gotham, vote Cornel.
Right, exactly. That's it. That's really it. Look, if RFK were running as an independent and Cornel weren't running, I'd probably go vote for RFK, even though he's a Zionist piece of garbage, because guess what? DeSantis, Trump, and Biden are all Zionist pieces of garbage themselves. So it's a wash, right? If you want to make Democrats panic, or in RFK's case, you would make Republicans panic also, since he'd draw a lot from them. If you want to make these two parties panic, you have to figure out a way to get in the game in a way that matters. Howie Hawkins, that's a waste of time. He's not causing any panic. Cornel West, RFK is a third-party candidate. Yeah, that's something. That's something, and something is better than nothing. And so don't get too hung up on, these little things. Now, again, you might say, well, wait, I thought you liked Pasta's interview. I did, because the question of on what terms do we build this movement is important. And Pasta probably has different priorities from me. For Pasta, it sounds like the Fauci thing may be a deal breaker. And so he's got every right to ask him that, right? I mean, he's got his priorities. I got mine. That's fine.
Exactly.
So he has every right to ask him that, to make sure that, hey, if we're going to make this investment, I want to make sure that this is something I feel I can invest in that's compatible with my values. Just like Russ and the, turning people's arms into a vagina or whatever they do.
Nobody wants a vagina arm.
No, exactly. But that's where I come down on it. That's where I come down on it. So, and look, to Russell, I think you made this point offline. You may have even said it earlier. If I forget, I'm sorry. But, if a shoe had a chance to disrupt, I'd probably vote for the shoe. Right? I mean, we're not talking about someone who's going to win the election. That's not the goal.
And
right?
ultimately,
it'd be lovely if it happened, but that's not the goal.
Yeah,
the goal is 5%, and even shy of that, even 3%, you'd make you make them shit their pants.
You'd make them shit their pants. Right. So and let me be clear. Even if he came down on those issues in a way I didn't like, I would still vote for him on election day. Right. I just couldn't get my heart into telling other people to get behind somebody whose views I don't agree with. I just couldn't do it. I need to be able to look you in the eye. And I wouldn't be able to at that point, but I would still vote for him for that reason, to disrupt the system. What I'm really talking about is, am I going to campaign for him?
Right.
Am I going to actively try to persuade others to vote for him? And that remains to be seen. But that answer to that question in that neighborhood, that general question on the subject, that was a sensible, reasonable answer. So that was promising. I think just to put a button on it, this campaign has really brought out a lot of ghosts and demons and infighting from the back catalog of the left's, third party efforts and so on. A lot of people are angry. A lot of people are bitter. I can't blame them. I mean, most of us have not really been active in that scene, and we're still fucking angry about Bernie. So for people who have been really involved in that scene, who got betrayed, they're carrying a grudge. And I understand it. But the real question I think you have to ask yourself is, well, so what are we doing here? Because as I said, I think on the last show, hey man, if it's just all about bitching, I'm going to just start a Star Wars sucks channel and make $1 gazillion like those guys do. You know, this is supposed to be an actual political project, not just a bitch fest.
Yeah, and look, I mean, what I would say to that is, we got into this a little bit with Jimmy. We've talked about it on the Post-Duopoly show. Sometimes you just have to accept when you feel there's no way forward. And if that means venting frustration and communicating that to other people in a way that makes them feel less alone, I think that's fine. But I think what you're talking about and what I would be talking about is don't pass up an opportunity to actually shake things up because of these grievances.
That's
right.
It.
Like,
that's it.
If this were not an opportunity, like, well, look, we told you don't pay Marianne any mind. We told you don't really pay RFK any mind either. They're running as Democrats. They'll be out of the game very, very soon. And so it's not worth it, right? This is a fake opportunity. If Cornel West is going to be on the ballot in 40 plus states in November, that is a real
That's an
chance
actual opportunity
to cause actual disruption, right? Whatever you feel about him, that's a real opportunity to disrupt. And that's why you have all these people. Kyle just said on their podcast today that he plans on voting for Biden in the general. So he's already registered blue no matter who. And he said he didn't vote for Biden in 2020. Now, I would love to peek inside the brain of a person who supports Biden more this time than last time. I don't understand. Like, if you didn't vote,
he's done a great job.
Yeah, like, who has he won over with his performance? I could see if you voted for him last time, you're going to vote for him again. That's most Democrats, right? Fine, well, I understand that.
All right,
well, 2020, I didn't vote for him, but this time I plan on voting for him in the general.
That was one of the best Babylon Bee headlines ever. After he gave his announcement of his reelection campaign, in ominous speech, Biden threatens to finish
the job. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. All right, we're behind on some super chats. Let's get to these, and then we got one more segment. Plus, we'll do that DeSantis piece.
Yeah,
we could do the DeSantis piece between now and then, actually. I can pull that up. Do you want to screen share that, Russell? Because if I'm being honest, I forgot all about that. I didn't prep it at all. So
sure.
I can look like a moron and do it, but you would probably do it better.
Sure.
All right, pull that up and get the screen share ready, but I'm going to do some super chats. Axel, thanks for the $2. I'm Chubby Bloopers, and I support Rick Sanchez. Thank you, Axel. Cool Blue 71, $4.99. I appreciated these early 2024 Biden re-election endorsements. Those who are doing so are letting me know, in case I'm not aware, not to trust them. Well, yeah, I mean, this is
enough.
This is how depressing it is, and again, this is part of what is so important about running outside the two-party system. People say all kinds of things. Oh, well, it's rigged against third parties. Yeah, but not in the same way. It's not rigged against third parties in the same way. When you are running inside a Democratic primary, you're competing for that endorsement, right? Because you know the unions are going to endorse a Democrat. For the time being, there's no way to break them. God bless Shama and the work that she's doing. She's trying to make that happen. We know that's not happening this cycle. So if you're running as a Democrat, you're gunning for that teachers union endorsement. And then when it goes to Biden, you're like, God fucking damn it. What are you doing? You're banging your head against the wall. The wall is the Democratic Party electorate, right? And you're just getting constant resistance from these fucking morons who don't know any better, but the bottom up, the middle out, you know what I mean? That's what you're dealing with. And it's extremely demoralizing. And that's what Shama says. Repeated defeats are demoralizing. Repeated defeats hurt movements because they create despair.
Yep. Right.
When you're running as a third party,
cynicism.
We knew Randy Weingarten wasn't going to pay Cornel West any mind anyway. Who gives a fuck? Fuck her. Fucked a lot of them, right? You build it on your terms.
They used Randy Weingarten for that ad because they have a computer that told them she is the exact median Democratic voter.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Well, she is. She is a perfect example. Exhibit A. Tusker, thanks for the $5. Did you guys see that there are some dock workers that might strike and the White House is getting involved again?
Yeah, I saw that because you sent it to me. You're right. We should have covered it.
Yeah. Well, next time. We'll do that on Thursday with Kit.
That's a good one for Kit.
Yes, indeed. Rodrigo Mendez. How many subs to unlock Chris Hedges. You mean to get Chris Hedges on the show?
I think if you say Sheldon Wolin 3 times, he appears.
Yeah, right. Exactly. I would love to get. I would absolutely be honored and elated to talk to Hedges. Hedges is one of my heroes, so I would love to make that happen.
I mean, you know what? It's going to be easier when we go to 3 shows in July. Like, there are a lot of people we want to have on, and we're trying to schedule it. We're trying to figure it out. I've been talking about this. I want to get Thomas Frank on to talk about The People Know, which is all about the history of the establishment attacking populism. And a lot of the book has to do with the history of third parties and the People's Party back in the 19th century, not the current incarnation. And it's kind of good that this got put off, because now this is the perfect time to have him on to talk about that. So there are a lot of interviews we want to do. It's just we don't do this 5 days a week, so it's hard.
Yeah, it is hard. It is hard.
We want to have Glenn Greenwald on. And,
yeah, I'd love to have Glenn on. But with the Friday morning show will be good too, because a lot of these guys probably can't do nights, So having that morning show once a week gives us an option to put an interview in the morning too. Harrison, friend of the show, thanks for the $4.99, my friend. The other guy liked that you guys enable the rewind fast forward function during live streams. Oh, is that what he was talking about? Yeah, I think that's the default. I'm pretty sure. I forget when we set it up. But yeah, obviously, when people file in late, we want them to be able to.
Fuck you, Harrison. You're a friend of everyone's show.
Friend of everyone's show. Buttering us up. Thanks for the $4.99. Russell, did you star this one?
Oh, yeah, just because I didn't want to forget it. So that was about when I was saying I want to do more work on Ukraine.
Oh, okay. Cool. All right. Well, thank you, Jan. Dave Delarai, God save the Queen, man. Yeah. I love that video. That's one of the Biden faux pas that, I don't mind. Some of them, what was the other one that he did? There was one other one that he did that was just kind of affable. The God Save the Queen man sign off was just funny. Glad to see this early pushback from people like Jimmy, yourselves, and Pasta. No more pedestals. Yeah, look, I mean, I have no relationship with Cornel West. I have no reason to stand for him or make up things for him or lie on his behalf or distort my views of him. No reason whatsoever. I thought his answer on the neo-fascist thing was weak, so I'll say it's weak. What? Why wouldn't I? But thank you, Dave. Roger Meadows. Wait a minute. Pasta's from out here? Where? I'm pretty sure Pasta's from Long Island, Roger. I'm pretty sure he told me that. I'm 99% sure I'm right about that. So you're from Long Island as well? All right. So we got 2 Long Islanders with good politics. Perfect. Beautiful. All right. Let's do Dwayne Vogel. Humanitarian interventionist Dems and neocon regime-changing warmongers differ only in the virtue signaling. Both are imperialist warmongers. Yeah. I mean, that's true. And that's a focused way of answering that question that I think Cornel should just stick to in the future, rather than try and parse, well, one's a disaster, one's a catastrophe, a disaster's better than a catastrophe, or this and that,
I mean, look, we're gonna cover a little bit of DeSantis, who my opinion about him has not changed. Yeah, he's a traditional Republican in the end. He's more astute about the culture wars than a lot of his peers. But yeah, he's not going to stop the war in Ukraine.
No,
Trump is the only one in the race who might do it.
Right, exactly. Franklin, thanks for the $1.99. Make your jokes to Jamie Foxx. He's not laughing. Oh, that was from my RFK joke. I mean, look, neither are the people in the freezer trucks in Central Park, right? So that goes both ways, right? It's good for the goose, as they say, right? Equal opportunity here. Thanks for the $2. Mescalito. Look up definition of inverted totalitarian. I'm sorry. Look up definition of inverted totalitarianism from Wolin Eulogy by Chris Hedges. That's what we have exactly. I will look that up. Thank you. Thank you for the tip. Always interested in reading more of his stuff. And I don't think I've read that, actually. And I make a point to read everything that I can get my hands on.
All right, Hedges I keep meaning to get that book. Hedges references that book in almost every speech he does.
Which one?
Sheldon Wollen's book. I forget the name of it now, but he has like a definitive book that touches on a lot of the concepts that are core to Hedges' thinking.
Yeah, I know he brings him up in interviews quite often. Quite often. When you see him do an interview. And then the speaking engagements.
Somebody in the chat is going to know.
Don't know. I like this one. Extra Bulla. The orcas in Gowanus Canal have 3 eyes like the fish in the Simpsons. That's a New York joke. Good one. Thank you, sir. All right. Russell, do you want to take a little bit of a game break and do this DeSantis volunteer army story?
I knew somebody would know.
There you go. Perfect.
Democracy Inc. Okay. It's not show. There we go. Okay. All right. So give me a second. This guy, Keaton's been drinking today, so he's not really holding up his end.
These are seltzers. Yeah. One beer. Yeah.
Oh, hang on. Where'd it go? Ah, there it is. Okay. All right. So file this under my don't sleep on DeSantis. Okay. So this is part of why I have the view on DeSantis that I do, other than the fact that the deep state will whack Trump before they will ever let him back in the White House unless he joins a tour group. DeSantis allies set up a school to train a $100 million door-knocking army. This is what everyone forgets about Trump. Trump has no discipline. He has no strategy. He has been very lucky in his enemies. Jeb Bush. It's a fucking dream for a guy like Trump. Like, yes, he has charisma and he has celebrity charm, but he has no discipline. He has no management skills. He's a performer. He's a clown. He's entertaining. DeSantis is serious, man. DeSantis is not a fucking joke. He's an intelligent, disciplined, pretty politically savvy guy who's been very politically successful. Like people who just dismiss him like, oh, look at the polls. The fucking polls. It's June, man. It's June. Nobody's even paying attention yet. So this motherfucker set up a school where they're not just bringing random volunteers like all us Bernie scrubs from back in the day. He's not just pulling people in off the fucking street. He's sending them to a volunteer boot camp. And then if you get through it, you get a job. You get $20 to $22 an hour. He's not doing it on a volunteer basis. And guess how he's doing it? A super PAC is paying for it. That's the beauty of it. He doesn't even have to take it out of his campaign funds. Tell me again how DeSantis has no chance. Okay, so always be polite, the trainees are told by Joe Williams, who runs the sessions for Never Back Down, a super PAC supporting the governor. Body language matters. Passion counts. Never accept water or go inside. Yeah, that's how you wind up a lampshade. Mentioned DeSantis' wife, Casey, her cancer diagnosis, and his military service. If a journalist answers or the voter targets say they are steadfast supporters of former President Donald Trump, quickly exit the conversation. Yeah, that's probably a good idea. Push back on the mailers that say DeSantis wants to cut Social Security. Be ready with the details of Florida's abortion law. Close with a caucus commitment card when possible. Never before has a presidential effort invested indoors in the way the DeSantis machine is doing. By Labor Day, Never Back Down aims to have about 2,600 trained canvassers in the 18 early nominating states, many with hotel rooms and rental cars, iPads, and evolving scripts, not to mention a paycheck from working in a position that is now advertised on job boards as between 20 to 22 an hour. The work will continue through March with staff redeployed as the election season proceeds. It is designed to allow the PAC to run a paid field operation bigger than ever before tried in a presidential primary on the scale of 4 simultaneous congressional races in Iowa, 2 in New Hampshire, and 7 in South Carolina. DeSantis has effectively abandoned the old model of running field operations with volunteers from a cash-strapped campaign, outsourcing the effort to a super PAC in ways that test the boundaries of campaign finance law. All right, so that's enough. You get the idea. Okay. This is exactly why writing DeSantis off has always just been absurd. I've always felt with this, there's that classic scene in Rocky where Rocky is working the meat in the freezer and Apollo is signing autographs and his trainer is watching Rocky on TV with increasing alarm. You better look at this guy. He's serious. Yeah, I'm serious too, Apollo says, right? That's how I always feel with DeSantis. I get it. No, DeSantis, Trump has got, nah, man. DeSantis is a serious man. Trump is not. Trump is not a serious person. Now, can his celebrity and his charisma and his star power overcome that? Maybe. I don't think so. I really don't think so. I don't think anyone has ever seen Trump run against somebody who knows how to actually run against him. And when you look at something like this, where he's going outside the box, coming up with a very intelligent, strategic method for overcoming Trump's name recognition advantage. And when you look at the record he's going to be able to run on with conservatives, DeSantis, I mean, I still hold to my opinion. Exactly. The ant and the grasshopper.
Well, as much as this Fauci stuff and all this other, pandemic related stuff is, sort of recapturing the zeitgeist, right? As people are more interested in litigating that, as we mentioned at the top of the show, Rogan trying to broker this debates, right? That issue has the potential to be very potent for DeSantis. And that's the point that I made when we got into that, when we were talking about pasta grilling Cornel West on that issue, right? I mean, part of the it's really, that is an issue where Trump is really at odds with his base, and there's really no excuse that he has for them. So that's an issue that can become a powerful thing. And yes, he is a more strategic operator. And so, yeah, I mean, I will give you, I think DeSantis is more ruthless. He's more cunning. He's more strategically minded. I mean, he's a jag. He's a fucking sick, torturing prick, right? I mean,
let me hang on. Let me read this part, because a lot of people want, how is he going to run against Trump? What is he going to use against Trump? All right, I won't throw it back up on the screen. I'm just going to read it. For the moment, Never Back Down is focused on the dual mission of introducing the candidate they support and separating a sizable portion of the Republican Party's right flank from Trump. Training materials cast the Republican governor, the Florida governor, as a superior fighter of liberal elites, particularly on social issues, championed by what the group calls woke corporations, the tainted media, and radical politicians. The contrast at times can be stark. Quote, Trump is an unfocused, undisciplined candidate who will lose to Joe Biden again, reads one briefing slide. Students are coached to argue that DeSantis has, quote, the same fire as Trump, unquote, but a better track record of accomplishment. They are encouraged to point out that Trump never finished the border wall, did not reduce the national deficit, and, quote, did not drain the swamp or get control of the bureaucracy, unquote. The training also includes a discussion of Trump's advanced age, 33 years older than DeSantis, who is 44. Political rallies are meaningless if conservatives don't get the job done, reads one briefing slide. DeSantis gets the job done. Trump didn't. That is a good fucking argument. Of course, that's his argument, and it's a valid one if you have the concerns of Republican voters.
The question is, do they have those concerns? I mean, that's ultimately the question, is how militant are they feeling? How much do they want to go all in on the burn it all down candidate? All right. All right, but let's do our fourth segment of the evening, shall we?
We shall.
Actually, let's knock out a couple more super chats before we do, just because we don't want to keep everybody up too late. Roger Meadows, thanks for the $2. You're sure those are fireworks and not gunshots in the air? Yes, the couple of them sounded like that, but those are fireworks. Yeah, Russell lives right across from a park, so there's a lot of partying going on there on the weekends in the summertime.
Well, it's Juneteenth tomorrow.
That's right,
and I live in Harlem.
That's true.
So
I'm
actually surprised people aren't still partying.
My wife is working tomorrow, and she's not getting holiday pay, even though Juneteenth is a federal holiday now. You know what I call that? It's fucking bullshit.
It's bullshit. I got to fucking work.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, I just thought of another joke I can't make. That's two. Can't believe I used to listen to Kuklinski.
Yeah, me neither. We're all in that boat. Most of us, anyway. Most of us. If we've been around this space long enough, we probably listen to him at some point.
Yeah, that's true. Oh man, it's a shame. That's a good one, but it's just too risky. Oh well, that's gonna bother me all night. It'll take time to restore chaos. George W. Bush.
Did he say that? Is that one of those Bushisms?
Is that one of his Bushisms, or is that a mock Bushism? But thank you, Mr. Fancy Pants, $9.99 super sticker. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, last segment of the evening. We have a few more super chats that we will take before we sign off, but here we go. So after Tucker Carlson debuted his new Twitter show, Fox sent him a cease and desist letter, citing what I guess was some sort of gag order in his contract, saying that he wasn't allowed to go on and do shows and create content for as long as they had him under contract at Fox, even though they let him go in terms of not being on the air anymore, obviously. Tucker defiantly called them out specifically the very next chance he got here in episode 4, which is called Wannabe Dictator, for reasons that you'll very soon learn.
Hey, it's Tucker Carlson. On Tuesday afternoon, the Biden administration had Donald Trump arrested. It was a pretty big news story. You may have seen it. Just before 9 p.m. that night, as part of its coverage, Fox News ran 2 live video feeds next to one another. On the right, Donald Trump addressed his supporters in New Jersey. On the left, Joe Biden spoke at an event for the Secretary General of NATO in Washington. Beneath those videos at the bottom of the screen, Fox's banner read this way, quote, "Wannabe dictator speaks at the White House after having his political rival arrested." Those words were up for less than 30 seconds, but the effect was immediate. Inside Fox, the women who run the network panicked. First, they scolded the producer who put the banner on the screen.
He takes the dig the women who run the network panic. It's like subtle, like he doesn't call too much attention to it, but he puts it in there. Doesn't say the people who run the network, he says the women who run the network panicked. Very, very subtle sort of culture war signaling there.
And that's the difference between him and Sean Hannity.
Yeah, exactly. You're right. Exactly. That's why he's number 1, baby.
Of course, after that, he resigned. He'd been at Fox for more than a decade. He was considered one of the most capable people in the building. He offered to stay for the customary 2 weeks, but Fox told him to clear out his desk and leave immediately. Then the company issued a public apology for the 27-second-long wannabe dictator line. Quote, "The Chiron was taken down immediately," Fox's PR department said, and then added ominously it was, quote, "addressed." That was all true, but it was not enough to save Fox News from the ensuing scandal. For a time in the rest of the media, Fox's assessment of Donald Trump's arrest seemed to overshadow Trump's arrest itself. Suggesting that Biden is a dictator, declared the Washington Post, quote, "crossed the line." Alexander Vindman agreed strongly. Vindman is the perennial MSNBC guest and full-time Ukraine promoter you may remember from Russiagate. On Twitter, he demanded that the Pentagon pull Fox News from all military bases. It is, quote, "absolutely unacceptable for American Forces Network to carry programming that directly, spuriously, attacks the Commander-in-Chief of American Armed Forces," Vindman wrote. In other words, Joe Biden must ban all criticism of himself because that's what non-dictators do. John Cusack went further still. For the crime of calling Biden a dictator, Fox should be shut down, wrote the 80s-era movie star. Quote, "the government has to take away their broadcasting license." And so on. It was all over the internet. Democrats were very...
it's really upsetting what a shitlib Cusack turned out to be, because Cusack was a Bernie guy. He did some union rallies for the Bernie campaign with the Chicago teachers, right?
I mean, Gross Point Blank.
Gross Point Blank, High Fidelity. You ever see High Fidelity? It was a great performance. Yes. That was a great movie. A great movie. You know, he's a cool actor, seems to have good politics, but man, he's basically a younger, sexier Rob Reiner at this point. It's really too bad.
Trump derangement syndrome claims another victim.
That's right. That's right.
Very angry. But why were they angry? If the banner on Fox was false, why the hysteria? Lies don't seem to bother anyone anymore. If some cable news producer had called Joe Biden a genius or accused him of being secretly Sudanese, would anyone be yelling about it? Would Fox News have apologized for it? Probably not. But calling Joe Biden a wannabe dictator, that stung. So you've got to wonder, if you're being honest with yourself, is Joe Biden a wannabe dictator? That question came up yesterday at the White House briefing. Here's how it went.
Last night, Fox News ran a chyron that referred to the president as a wannabe dictator, and I'm wondering if the White House has any comment on that.
So look, there are probably about 787 million things that I can say about this. That was wrong about what we saw last night, but I don't think I'm going to get into it.
There's no comment the White House has on it?
I think I just commented.
Okay, so 787 million reasons. She's obviously referencing the Dominion settlement for $787 million. There's another lawsuit coming down the pike, which is the Smartmatic lawsuit. They have signaled that they're not really going to be willing to settle for anything less than what Dominion got. So you're talking about another huge payout that Fox is going to be ordered to issue. And I'm sorry, YouTube changed their rules on this, so we can talk about this a little bit. It used to be we couldn't talk about this at all. To use these lawsuits as sort of bully tactics to basically, for the political system to have its way with this news outlet. Again, you talk about fascism, right? Talk about a wannabe dictator, right? I mean, the fact of the matter was that Trump, as irresponsible as it was and as baseless as it was, I mean, I don't believe that they took machines out, I mean, there was really no evidence for that I know of. But the fact is, you had a president making those claims, and at that point, like, what? You're supposed to not cover it? You're supposed to not opine on it? Like, is that not grist for the mill at that point? Like, is it really proper to extract billions of dollars for them, and not only extract billions of dollars from the network, but use that as a sort of threat to hang over every subsequent call that they make, whether it's first, probably, if we're to believe what's been said about this, fire Tucker, right, as part of the settlement. But now what? A guy makes a snarky comment on the chyron and what he's got to go immediately. And what Jean-Pierre said there was, well, I can think of 787 million reasons why they may have had to can this guy. So what? Now you're going to use these lawsuits as precedent to, like, every time, Fox News steps out of line, they're going to feel like, oh shit, we better disappear whoever did this, because otherwise they're going to come for us again. That's not a healthy media environment in a non-fascist country. I'm sorry. It's just not.
Well, I may disagree with what you say, but I'll defend to the death your right to say it, that they don't believe in that anymore. Right? The liberal class at this point believes in censorship. Once Donald Trump got elected, they decided democracy is too dangerous to allow it to function. You have got to impede the people to the point that it's no longer democracy in the defense of democracy. You have to destroy the village in order to save it. So to them, doing this to Fox News doesn't raise any alarm bells. Fox News is this hated enemy that they're finally getting what they deserve because they're spreading misinformation. These kind of broader philosophical implications on free speech and freedom of the press, these are not things they contemplate or even seem to believe in anymore. I mean, look what they did to Matt Taibbi. Do you see them horrified about the IRS showing up at the house of a journalist on the day that he testified to Congress about misinformation from the government and the government working with a tech platform? They are fascists. They are fascists. They don't believe in freedom of speech. They don't believe in freedom of the press. Now Fox, they don't know whether to shit or wind their wristwatch. They are just in a terrible position, getting it from all sides. You already had more extreme right-wing stations coming online and challenging them for viewers. You already have Newsmax. What's the other one? OAN?
OAN, yeah.
You already had those starting to pick away the people who needed to mainline their heroin, more directly. You already had that eating away at them. Now you have these lawsuits opened up a vulnerability that is allowing an establishment that always wanted to crush Fox to really come in for the kill. And in the end, they never really believed in this shit anyway, as we will see.
Yeah, we'll show that in a second. We'll show that in a second. But before we're off this sort of lawsuit and the precedent set by the lawsuit, I just did want to show this. Now, once again, I am not making an equivalence here because Trump insisting that they rigged it against him is obviously a bit different. But as recently as 2016, Clinton campaign backs Jill Stein's election recount effort, right? So if you remember this, and by the way, Courtney will be happy to know, this was a major red flag when it came to evaluating the Greens and even Jill Stein, who I tend to respect a great deal. The fact that she instigated recounts in the swing states that Trump won narrowly was suspicious to me because it seemed like maybe she was afraid of being surrounded because they were blaming her for the Democrats' loss.
Which they were going to do anyway.
They were going to do anyway. Right. And there were states like Nevada and New Hampshire, which Clinton won by narrower margins than she lost the upper Midwest, Michigan, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin. Jill Stein didn't try to get recounts going in any of those states. She only wanted recounts in the states that Clinton lost narrowly. The Michigan recount alone cost almost $1 million, cost $973 million, which for the Green Party, that's a lot of fucking money, right? I mean, Democrats have that to burn. The Greens don't. So what the fuck? I mean, what was that about? And the Clintons backed that effort, right? Now, again, that's not an equivalency. But as a news organization, if you're going to cover that and opine on that, then you ought to be free to opine on Trump's claims after 2020 as well, right? Like, why can't you opine on it? And now they're saying, well, there's a difference between opining and defamation. Well, those lines become very, very blurred when the president of the United States, the sitting president, is articulating a position so forcefully. This is why a lot of these organizations fear Trump so much, because he doesn't play by Marcus of Queensberry rules, right? And that's fair enough. I mean, you don't have to like him for that reason. That you could vote against him by all means. But fact of the matter is, he's there, whether you like it or not. And if he's making these arguments and you cover these arguments, is that grounds to sue them into oblivion to the point where now every personnel decision is made with that threat hanging over their head? I mean, a Chiron producer should not have written wannabe dictator. You can't run a news organization where the graphics guy is giving his editorial opinion on the events. I mean, that's just not a way to run things, right? So I'm not saying he shouldn't have been reprimanded at all. But if what Tucker's saying is true, and this guy's been a good employee for 10 fucking years, maybe a suspension, right? Maybe give him, give him a couple weeks leave and say you can't do that again, right? I mean, do you have to get rid of him? What he's arguing and not what he's arguing, what the White House press secretary is arguing is that they had to be so draconian because of the fact that they're getting sued. And the fact that now every misstep comes with the threat of a government-enforced lawsuit.
Right. Which is a wonderful way to run a democracy.
Right, exactly.
It's a wonderful way to run the press.
Exactly.
Well, and this is something that people, liberals, used to understand. This is one of these places where you get very muddy about the definitions. But they used to understand if they can do it to them, they can do it to you. It was never about wanting Nazis to march in Skokie. It was always about the door you open when you tell them they can't.
Right, exactly.
That's it. If they can do it to Fox, next time they can do it to an outlet you like. Also, you've opened a door. Based on the evidence, what on earth makes you think that the Democrats are going to continue to hold power for very long? They generally don't. Republicans hold power quite a bit more frequently. Look at all the precedents you've set with impeachment. I mean, with prosecution of former presidents. Like, look at the precedent you're setting. And now anybody who's going to say, well, but Trump deserves it. I'm sorry, man. As long as George Bush is a free man, I don't want to fucking hear it. I don't want to hear it.
Of course,
I'm not interested. I don't give a shit about it. Is he guilty? Sure. So's Biden. He's guilty of the same thing. He took home the classified documents. Now you're going to say he did it more willfully. Okay. All right. but he didn't order torture in violation of the Geneva Conventions.
He didn't come to power. This is another thing we couldn't say on YouTube a couple of weeks ago. He didn't come to power because the Supreme Court intervened on his behalf to literally stop the counting of votes. Right? That's another thing.
Well, that's true too.
Right.
So not only is George Bush walking around a free man, you people get weak in the knees when he shares a fucking candy at a funeral with Michelle. And you got Michelle running around working overtime to rehabilitate him, saying nice things about him. That's why the fucking cowbell people went off like that. Because they've been told.
Right, exactly.
No, Bush is good.
He's one of them now.
He's one of us. He's a good one. No, but so as long as Bush is walking around a free man, I don't want to fucking hear it. Like, yeah, sure, he's guilty. I who cares? You have opened up a door to the prosecution of former presidents on grounds that really a lot of presidents are going to qualify for prosecution if you're lowering the bar to something like this. Torture doesn't meet this standard, apparently, but bringing home classified documents does. Okay, well, wait until the Republicans are in that position. It's the same thing with Fox. What do you think they're going to do with institutional power that you happen to be holding right now to MSNBC? Come on, fucking Rachel Maddow lies every time she opens her fucking mouth. You can't find grounds for a lawsuit at MSNBC against her or Joy Reid for some shit that they say some night.
If the P-tape shit is not a defamation case waiting to happen, I don't know what is.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. So you know, you have all these libs celebrating. I'm sure a lot of you saw it on your social media. Oh, look, Trump's prosecuted and Fox is being sued into oblivion. All right, well, wait until the wheel comes around. Now you have set a precedent. And it's very interesting that it's the conservatives we're supposed to be afraid of. And you seem to be the ones who keep pushing the boundaries into territory that undermines democracy when you have power to do so.
Right, exactly. Did you have that other exhibit that you wanted to share about Fox before we move on? Because we're going to take some super chats before we leave, folks. Don't worry, we didn't forget.
Okay, so there's another side of this that's kind of interesting. All right, so Fox is getting killed from all sides. So first of all, if you look at what's going on with their ratings, and I just want to make it clear, this is a hostile witness. This is Media Matters, but they're pulling these numbers from Adweek. So
yeah, these are objective.
They're objective numbers.
Yeah.
In an updated analysis of the network's ratings, Media Matters found the total viewership for Fox's 8 o'clock hour dropped by 55% during the month of May, compared to Carlson's 2022 average of 3.5 million. Now they got 1.5 million. The 9 to 10 hours have also continued to experience the fallout from Carlson's departure, with their May 2023 ratings respectively dropping 37 and 35% from their average 2022 nightly viewership. So yeah, I mean, you can see the chart here. You can see right where they fired Tucker.
Yeah.
Boom. They're just going into the toilet. So they don't know whether to shit or wind their wristwatch. So you have another element to this story as well. There are very few people working in elite media who are not elites. And there are very few elites who actually have the social views that Fox promotes. So not only are they getting destroyed for firing Tucker, not only are they getting destroyed for things like getting rid of that producer, but Matt Walsh just leaked a bunch of documents from Fox that show that actually behind the scenes at Fox, you might as well be working over at MSNBC. It's really not that much different. So let me see.
Yeah, no, while you're pulling that up.
There it is.
The people, look, Fox headquarters are 47th and 6th. MSNBC headquarters are literally right across the street. right? 30 Rockefeller Center. So you're talking about, cosmopolitan New Yorkers, right? Pushing the paper in both houses, right? I mean, culturally, there's not a big difference.
That's it. And something, this isn't in this Twitter thread, but Fox, until very recently, I'm not sure if they still have it, they had a perfect rating from the Human Rights Campaign on their treatment of LGBTQ people in their workplace. So,
just to be clear, they should. That's a good thing.
They should. Yes.
But it's not consistent with their branding is the point.
And in fact, as I read through this Matt Walsh stuff, remember, like, we're not taking Walsh's side here. Like, the way he's going to frame a lot of this is, oh my God, they don't hang gays in the men's room there, we're not supporting that, but his reporting here is accurate. It's backed up by documents. The point of it is not, oh my God, this is terrible about Fox. The point is they're just lying to their viewers about who they are, more so than MSNBC, because I'm sure Joy Reid believes most of that shit. And the stuff that she doesn't believe, she feels is justified by the war that she's fighting, right? These people don't even have that. They're really putting on a show for the Roops.
Of course, yeah, absolutely.
So
like Sean Hannity. Yeah, I'm going to move to Mississippi next year.
Yeah, he's going to go fly fishing. We've obtained internal docs from Fox News employees. Fox Corp is celebrating Pride by encouraging employees to read about glory holes, supporting a group that gives sterilizing hormones to homeless youth, and deployed woke AI. That one's interesting. We're going to get into that. To monitor everyone. Explicit content. So under the heading Support One Another, Fox encourages employees to donate to Trevor Project, Ali Forney Center, and LA LGBT Center. The Trevor Project, which Fox says is devoted to helping LGBTQ young people, hosts a sexually explicit chat room that connects children as young as 13 years old with LGBT adults. The Ali Forney Center, which Fox praises for rescuing homeless LGBT youth, appears to admit on Twitter and its website that it injects these homeless young people with cross-sex hormones, which are known to cause sterilization. Now, however you feel about that issue, and if you've stayed with our show, you're probably kind of in line with Walsh's take on that. But this is not Fox's brand. Even if you feel that's great that they do this work, do their viewers understand that this is what they're sending out to their employees? And their employees, for the most part, are presumably attuned to this. The Los Angeles LGBT Center, which Fox calls Unstoppable, has posted a video of her mother surprising her trans daughter with the child's first dose of hormones. YouTube removed the footage for terms of service violations, but a screenshot is still on Twitter. Let's scroll down a bit more on the Fox employee portal. Employees are also encouraged to, quote, expand their perspective by reading books by trans activists, including a memoir titled Fairest about a precious boy who would grow up to be a woman. The book contains information that's obviously important for Fox employees as they go about their duties at work. For example, an early scene explains what a glory hole is. That's it. We're getting pulled down for this segment. Mm-hmm. It's too late. We already showed it. The Fox endorsed.
What did we show? We didn't show nothing.
Oh, we showed description of what a glory hole is. Also, I got to say this. I agree with Walsh about this. Writing is fucking terrible. Fox endorsed book also details the author's graphic description of having a cock in his mouth. Okay, now this book sounds fucking terrible. I've never heard of this. Another book that Fox leadership encourages its employees to read, Red, White, and Royal Blue, is about a fictional gay relationship between the Prince of Wales and the president's son. It contains this dialogue calling America a genocidal empire. Okay, I'm actually going to read this. Aunor says, "You're blushing." Listen, Alex tells her, royal weddings are trash. The princes who have royal weddings are trash. The imperialism that allows princes to exist at all is trash. It's trash turtles all the way down. Is this your TED Talk, June asks? You do realize America is a genocidal empire too, right? Yes, June. but at least we have the decency not to keep a monarchy around, Alex says, throwing a pistachio at her. Okay, so this is like if the writers of West Wing collaborated with the writers of Sex and the City. This is what they would come up with. The book, which Fox suggests will expand your perspective, also quickly devolves into gay erotica. All right, so moving right along, you get the idea. Elsewhere on the Fox employee portal, workers are encouraged to attend a Ben & Jerry's powered Pride event at the New York headquarters of Fox News. So you understand a lot of what they are showing, what their brand, this is not what's actually happening at Fox. Okay, so this is fucking creepy as hell. If they use this at Fox, they're using this at other places. Not all Fox employees are happy with this propaganda. That might be why last year Fox experimented with a solution to monitor employees' commitment to DEI. It's an AI platform called Escalera, which tracks employees' commitment to the cult of DEI. As our Latin friends will know, that means ladder in Spanish. Fox leadership told employees to sign up for Escalera so that the AI could help them engage in activities that will deepen their understanding of identity and explore more nuanced D&I concepts. Escalera says it pulls in data from various sources, including the email and payroll systems. It generates a peer comfort index and a diversity index based in part on how often employees practice, quote, micro affirmations. One of Escalera's key functions is to influence decisions involving personnel. The AI can even calculate an attrition cost that different divisions could suffer if they fail to promote DEI. Not what you expect at Fox, is it? So this employee frequently posts about his work at Fox News, like this Biden victory image he was so happy we got to use. So this guy looks like he's a Democrat. How he squares that circle, I don't know. How do you sleep at night if you're really a Democrat working over there? This Fox News employee also regularly lashes out at Fox News's audience. In a recent post, for example, he attacked conservatives' concerns over drag queens targeting children, writing, "When are you Hicks going to be honest about who the real problem is?" The Fox News employee also came out in support of the Sisters of Perpetual Indulgence, a group that openly mocks the Catholic faith. Those of you in LA will have followed that story, where there's been a lot of controversy around them over there. And here's the ESG tie-in. Maybe Fox leadership isn't concerned with how the audience feels because they're not really beholden to those viewers at all. Like YouTube, some of Fox's largest shareholders are enormous institutional investors, particularly BlackRock and Vanguard Group. So Vanguard has owned 6.93% of Fox. BlackRock owns 4.59%. So that's the size of it. It seems like Fox has been put in a position where they have concluded that they cannot continue to do the kinds of broadcasts that they were doing. So they're going to have to lean into their DEI and ESG scores. I mean, it seems like they just don't really know what to do. Now, my question with a lot of these companies that are collapsing, like Disney, how unprofitable can you be before the institutional investment money stops coming in? I mean, these people can't just keep losing people's retirement funds.
Yeah, I mean, we will see. I mean, it's like I said, well, we said this as soon as Tucker was fired. I wrote a whole article about it, about how, I mean, that's it. That was the channel really committing suicide. I mean, it was really the channel just rendering itself irrelevant because the brand of conservatism that they traffic in for the most part is obsolete, right? I mean, Tucker was sort of the distillation of, the sort of nationalism and the sort of populism that came with that. that made Trump a force and that made Fox something that was worth paying attention to. I mean, every time there was some, outrage about something said on Fox News, it was Tucker Carlson. AOC used to mention Tucker Carlson. When did AOC go after Sean Hannity? Who cares? Nobody gives a shit about Sean Hannity or Laura Ingraham, any of them. You know what I mean? But yeah, no, I mean, look, it's going to be interesting to see how
also
the campaign develops and how their footage, how their coverage shapes and is shaped by the developments of the campaign.
Well, it seems like they just don't even know what lane to go into now. Like, where can they go? Like if they're not going to traffic in what they did before, which clearly behind the scenes, that's what's interesting about this document drop. They never believed in this shit anyway.
Yeah,
like it's really putting on a show for people that they don't even particularly like.
They're big city types. They're pros.
They're not much different from their
No,
opposite number across the street at MSNBC.
No, not really. Cut from the same cloth. The fucking CIA, you're usually kind of a troll, but this is actually a decent point. So why didn't Tucker quit and protest when he got these suggestions? Like, if he knew these were the inner workings, why wouldn't he leave? That's a fair question. Fair point. Fair point.
Maybe he'll sit down and do an interview with Matt Walsh where
exactly.
Walsh will ask him. Yeah, no, actually, Walsh has made this point, and it's a valid point too. If they are what they pretend that they are, why don't they bring on people like Matt Walsh? They don't. They never did. I mean, I'm not saying he's never been on there, but once his profile really got boosted, he's not on there. Most of the Daily Wire people aren't on there. I mean, I this is kind of, I think what we're seeing here, we're not right wingers, so we don't focus as much on the doings and inner workings of conservative media. But it seems like just the parallel universe version of what's happening with the collapse of institutional liberal media. This is
sure. It's a parallel.
Right. It's Fox collapsing, and people like the Daily Wire and Newsmax and OAN are going to wind up supplanting them.
Indeed. All right. Kiwi, you're a patron caller. Patreon members have call-in access to this show. Thanks for staying up, Kiwi. Did you want to say hello?
What's up, man?
What's going on?
Hey, so I had a couple questions. In regards to the Tucker segment, I guess it's kind of related to the Tucker segment. Do you guys have any opinion on why YouTube removed the election misinformation thing?
You want to take it, Kate? I mean, because it was just going to be too difficult for them to allow corporate media to be on YouTube during this election with Donald Trump mentioning that every 10 minutes.
Right. Like, how are you going to ignore it?
Okay.
I think that's part of it. I think that's a big part of it, is that, like, at a certain point, you have to let outlets cover the campaign. Right. And you can't get into a thing where you're going to have different terms of service for the accredited channels.
I mean, they do, but that
I was about to say
it would have been too overt.
Well, they're not going to formalize it in that way. Right. They wouldn't formalize it in that way.
Because from my perspective, them removing that, it'd be like if they were like, hey, YouTube content creators, after the Charleston riots, we put in a no killing JOOs policy, but now we've removed it, and now you can do that whatever you want,
Well, I mean, I think when you look at a situation like January 6th, right, and you evaluate, okay, how culpable is Trump in that? You can make that determination independent of dictating to ordinary people whether they can discuss the issue of the election process, right? Like I don't think those things are inseparable. Like, I think in the wake of January 6th, just like when the pandemic hit, there was this sense that we have to control the conversations because words are going to lead to harm. And, I think 3 years away from it, perhaps the sense is that, they're willing to be looser with, how people talk about that. I mean, what's really the harm? Now, they do have certain policies still in place, which I think are reasonable enough. Like I said, I'm not really against terms of service. I just want them enforced fairly and accurately and with some like accountability to the process, right? If you're screwed, you should be able to appeal that and trust that appeal is going to be handled in good faith. Like, for example, you cannot tell someone to vote on the wrong day. Right, like you can't put out that kind of election misinfo. But in terms of past elections, like you're allowed to speculate that, hey, maybe the 2000 race shouldn't have been called the way it was. That was not the case up until this. Our friend Willie Bragg had a video pulled because he talked about the 2000 election. I was even nervous to talk about because, you know, what do we talk about all the time on these kind of channels? The rigged primaries of 2016, right? The language they were using in their rules was such that you'd have been nervous to even talk about that as explicitly as a lot of us are used to do.
I definitely caught that out. I think it was in the Patreon stream. You were talking about the Brooks Brothers riot.
Yeah, the Brooks Brothers riot.
It was very odd to me that YouTube was even flagging that kind of content.
Well, they were flagging anything related to 2000, right? You were not allowed to question the results of any current or past election.
But that's not true, as Matt Orfalea pointed out with his supercut of Russiagate.
Well,
that was a 4-year-long speculation
framed it
on the election being rigged.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I'm just saying, like, at like January 2021, I sort of understand restricting discussion around the 2020 election, but it just based off of what you guys said about your friend that got knocked off for talking about the Brooks Brothers
suspended.
riot.
He didn't get he's back, but they did penalize him. Yeah.
Well, still, the fact that any kind of election misinformation was knocked off. I mean, like I understand the kids' gloves around the 2020 election, but to say that talking about the 2020 election or even the 2016 election, to be honest with you, is off limits. I mean, I don't know. That seems kind of
I don't understand the harm done. Like, I just don't understand the harm done. Like, this stuff has to
for
actually
something
cause
that's already
harm.
done.
There's a difference between an ordinary person speculating online and the president saying Capitol buildings that way, go and be strong. Like, those are obviously two different things.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah. That's what I mean. It's something so far removed. Like, who's going to go up in arms over the 2000 elections at this point?
Right.
You know?
Exactly.
Well, he shared candy with Michelle. So
but anyway, that wasn't even really my biggest.
No, it's okay. Question number 2. Go ahead.
So this is more for Russell, actually. What do you think the end game of the ESG and DEI score stuff is, based off of your like rant about it? Because I truly it mystifies me.
Honestly, it mystifies me too. If you look at people in spaces where they're willing to really contemplate these things from an outside perspective, some people say it's population control, right? I mean, make more people sterile, right? Make less people breed.
I mean, I could give you an answer if you want. I have a theory. Go ahead. If you're not done, you're not done. But I think they're trying to create an alternative system of market incentives, right? At this point, the 1%, broadly speaking, the rich, the elites, the ones with the real money, they have enough money right now. They control enough capital where they can create an economy on their own terms that does not necessarily conform to what we think of as market incentives, i.e., creating products and services that people want and then selling them for a price they're willing to pay. These people have enough money. They can start awarding money to each other based on who they like and who they don't. And that takes a lot of pressure off of certain companies, like Fox in this case, to actually create a marketable product that the rubes want to buy, right? Like, once you control enough capital, you can create your own rules of your own game and distribute funds according to that. That's what I think.
This is the really strange...
Because once the people run out of money, they're not going to have enough to buy from these people anyway. Right? I mean, eventually, that's where we're headed. Go ahead. Sorry.
This is the part of it that I guess I I'm doing research, which is difficult to do, right? Because they're not going to come out and tell you. And, it's very easy to go down rabbit holes with this kind of thing. But I guess my biggest question is, do they actually believe this shit? I mean, it's possible because, I mean, I think there are elements on the ground of how all this came up. Like, you could trace where this all came from up through postmodernism, the collapse of Marxism and academia, and the need to adopt a new kind of paradigm to base their academia around. Like, you could trace where the intellectual roots of it are. I personally believe you have all of these not-for-profits that once gay marriage passed needed to find a controversy that could give them many years of
definitely.
donations to gin up. So I think all that's a factor in how fucking just on the face of it, insane so much of so-called social justice is. I honestly think some of it is simply a cycle of history thing where progress eventually becomes regressive, right? Because if you're a progressive, you don't stop progressing, right? So what if you succeed? Then your movement goes to shit. So it's basically, some of these movements should have ended in season 5, and now we're in season 8, and the show.
They jumped the shark 3 seasons.
They
ago.
jumped the shark 3 seasons ago, and they just kept going. That's why you're like, man, I loved MLK in season 4. He was amazing. What's with this Kendi guy? Oh my god, does he fucking suck? He sounds like an idiot. I think that's true of a lot of social. I think there's that element, but this is the part I can't conclusively give you an answer on, the ESG and the DEI part, like the part that's coming out of BlackRock and Vanguard. Because if you read, I still have this sitting here from when I was talking about it. If you read this, the impression that you would get from Winners Take All is that they actually believe this shit, that they actually think that this is doing good by doing well, that they think that they're helping the world. And, I mean, that's not out of the question, because if you don't actually want to change the system because the system benefits you, what is there but to be like, to tinker with social norms and mores and to slap a label of social justice on honestly fucking perversion and madness. like what's left at that point if you're not willing to actually, and especially if you have a vested interest in distracting people from economic discussions and economic interests. So something I often see with this in this generation is when you look at young people who so passionately want to fight you over, fucking men and women's sports, right? That's the genius of it. And that's where it's hard not to see it as a conspiracy, because youth are idealistic, right? They want to change the world. It's the nature of youth. Wow, man. What a great thing it is in a time when we have wealth inequality worse than the Gilded Age, that you've taken an entire generation's idealism and focused it on bathroom laws. I mean, that's fucking wonderful for the 1%. So is it a conspiracy? I would tend to fall back there maybe on the George Carlin line that Keaton knows very well. What's the line, Keaton?
Well, you don't need a formal conspiracy when interests converge.
Right.
Serendipitous conspiracy.
Exactly.
So that's a long way of saying I can only speculate on what these fucking Klaus Schwab motherfuckers are actually thinking with this shit.
That's the thing that confounds me, though, is because, I can understand, a group of, people in a smoke-filled room saying, the young people really like trans people. Let's push this, But the other side of me thinks is all right, so the cynical side has to be all right, yeah, this shit ain't selling. Which, it kind of airs out in the Target and the Bud Light controversies the past couple months,
They went too far.
It's not just that.
They pushed it too far. There was only so much fucking imposition from elites of social values that are completely antithetical to the values of most people, particularly, and this is what those of us who really care about the gay community have been saying for a very long time. Don't fuck with people's kids, man. Don't fuck
Well,
with
yeah,
kids.
definitely.
The backlash is going to be enormous, and now you're seeing it.
It's not just that; it's internationally, globally. Russia, Ukraine, right? I mean, Russia throughout its history, Russia remained Orthodox when most of Europe went Catholic. That's why Russia's been isolated for throughout its history as a nation. A lot of what's going on now internationally, especially as we see NATO and the G7 versus BRICS and Russia and stuff like that, it's a battle of values, right? It's who is welcome to participate in this new global economic system, the people we like, right? So that's on a very, very macro level. On a more micro level, here within our borders, it's ESG scores. Okay, who's on the good list and who's on the bad list? We're going to make sure those on the good list are taken care of, right? Whereas everybody who's not is going to have to compete in an actual market, meaning they're actually going to have to make shit that people want, right? And so this is a way of just creating a parallel incentive that does not conform to like traditional market imperatives.
Right. Yeah, that's one thing that comes up to me. It almost seems like like an inversion. Like the West is kind of like a planned rainbow-colored economy. You know?
Exactly. That's a very good way of putting it. Yeah, indeed. All right, Kiwi. Well, thank you so much for the call. Great to hear from you, and thank you for your support. Appreciate it.
Hey,
thank you, man.
Good job, guys.
All righty. Oh,
thank you, brother.
Thank you so much. All right, let's take some super chats before we head out of here. Looks like we're going to crack 4 hours on this stream. What do you know? Will S., thanks for the $5. There needs to be a monthly drunken or high DueDissidence on Rumble. I'd buy that for $1. Neither Russell and I are big weed guys. I was never a big weed guy. It always just made me tired and didn't make me very interesting.
I have dysphoria on it, man.
It would be a very boring
bad show.
You'd watch me sleep, basically, for 3 hours. But, maybe a couple beers I'd be good for on Rumble.
I'm so wasted.
What about DeSantis' gay voice, Russell, says Franklin? You don't think that'll hurt him?
I've never met him in a hotel room. I haven't heard it.
Hey, I don't know yet. Don't. Thanks, Noah, for the $2. Neocon Ron, ensure Ron death sentences. That's a good one. Death sentences.
Yeah, give that to the Trump campaign. They're going to need all the help they can get if I'm right.
Thank you, Noah. Paul Chu became a member. Beautiful. Thank you so much for your support. That's great. Excellent. Really appreciate that, folks. If you can become a member at patreon.com/DueDissidence, DueDissidence.substack.com. It really helps. I'm going to shout out we had a couple members just sign up during this stream, Jackie and James. Beautiful. Thank you guys so much for doing that. That's very, very kind of you guys.
Thank you.
Mr. Fancy Pants, thanks for the $9.99. Still waiting to hear West's position on the New Zealand game. Yeah, got to make sure, right? Got to fence Sid as long as possible. We'll make sure to ask him that if we get him on the show for you. For the $10. Axel, thanks for the $5. The Biden administration intimation that they'll sick the private sector dogs on harsh critics is mask off. Fascist, yes, I agree. Indeed.
Yep.
And look at that, even threw $2 in for the typo, intimating. Thank you, Axel. We appreciate that.
That is a man who pays for his grammatical errors.
Yes, you could tell he really takes pride in his work. DC, thanks for the $5. Rig primary equals rig general. If the voters don't get to decide who all appears on the ballot, the whole goddamn thing is a sham. Agreed. Thank you very much. Folks, that is our show. Thank you for being here. A long one, but a good one. We told you we had a lot of news to get to. We have a lot going on this week. We're going to be on RBN tomorrow night for the Post-Duopoly show. Back here Thursday night with our friend Kit Cabello from Hard Lens Media. And then we'll be back here again on Sunday. Please hit that subscribe button if you have not already done so. That is very important. You can go to patreon.com/DueDissidence, DueDissidence.substack.com. If you cannot join as a paid Substack subscriber, join for free. It still puts you on an email list. You get alerts for upcoming live streams, articles that we put out on occasion, and audio podcasts of all of these streams. Is that all we got, Russell?
That's all we got, baby.
That's all we got, everyone. So we will see you guys over on RBN tomorrow, back on this channel on Thursday. Until then, be safe, be well, and remember, if you fuck an octopus, they better give you an Oscar.
courage.
Please clap.